How's everybody doing today? All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We are at our fifth and final forum today, our planning forum. Before we get started and everything, I want to make sure we introduce again, everybody, make sure you hydrate, have some water. There's some fruit in front if you guys need it. What was okay. And we're going to get the music turned off. Okay, Ron is doing it. So, shoot, I'm not a comic. All right. I hear you. I got it. All right. Good. How's everybody doing today? Can you guys hear me okay? Beautiful, beautiful. How are you guys feeling today? Wonderful. Thank you guys for joining us on a beautiful Wednesday. You guys found it okay and everything? We're good? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do, for those who have not been here, obviously we have a wonderful discourse and conversation that we're going to go ahead and have today. We're going to have amazing speakers, amazing panelists coming up as well. And but before I do that, she'll be here in a moment. We're going to go ahead and introduce the host, essentially, this evening of this beautiful facility that we're in. We want to thank her for the Afro City Marketplace. Rhonda Ray, I want to introduce her really quick. She just come over and say a few words. Rhonda, how are you? Thank you so much for your fantastic work.
Thank you. And my name is Rhonda Ray, the creator and founder of the Afro City Marketplace. I want to welcome you all here. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing and getting all this good information. We are the home of Recycling Black Dollars. We have over 20 small Black-owned businesses under one roof, and we're looking for more in the community. And our goal is to get and instill how important it is for us to have an intention to support our small Black-owned businesses first in our community so that the dollar recycles longer. As you all know, in other communities, it stays in like so long. And that's our goal here. Please visit us if you don't get to visit us tonight on a break. Come back. I'll leave our cards at the check-in desk. And I guess that's about it. And also, if you guys get a chance, please nominate us as one of your favorite businesses on KJLH, and we could possibly win an advertising, what do you call it? An advertising campaign on KJLH. So if you go to our website, which is www.afrocitymarketplace.com, scroll to the bottom, click on Nominate Black Business, and nominate us and vote for us. Yeah, so if you can do that now, that would be great. AfroCityMarketplace.com, and give us a vote so that we can win that advertising campaign and support these small businesses here so that they can support their families and the community. Thank you so much again for being here.
All right, let's go ahead and moving on with the show. We're going to introduce our illustrious MC for the evening, Jay Tucker.
Hi, everybody, and welcome. I love having the opportunity to see a full house tonight. This is the last event that we're going to be doing of this type. Hopefully, the conversations that we started here will go on and ripple through the rest of our communities. We've got a lot to get to today, so the first thing I want to do is ask Charles Johnson, who's a program director for California Jobs First, to come up and say a few words just to give you a sense of context before we get started. How many of you have been to one of the other four events that we've had so far? A few people. All right. Well, I think you're in for a treat tonight. I'm going to ask Charles to come on up. Charles?
Hello, everyone. Thank you once again for coming out. I feel like I've said this probably about 50 times, and I know Linda Kelly, you can probably, repeat most of what I'm about to say here. Thank you again. She's on her fifth of all five, so thank you for coming out and everybody else for coming out. I'm Charles Johnson, Program Director of California Jobs First. I apologize for reading, but I'm getting older, I'm forgetting stuff. I don't know why I'm pretending like I can see this without my glasses. So yeah, thank you. This is the 5 series of what we're calling the Geographic, Racial Planning, and Environmental Justice Forums. This was not an event planned by the state of California, but an event planned by the constituents here in Los Angeles County. Felt it was necessary for every race and ethnicity in LA County to have a voice about how racial issues regarding employment and the environment affect them and how they can potentially be resolved. California Jobs First in general was established to create livable wage jobs, not entry-level jobs, livable wage jobs for people who've, quite frankly, been overlooked for too long. I've been a resident of LA for about 30 years, and probably like a lot of you, tired of seeing, unhoused people living under viaducts and makeshift tents, qualified older adults struggling to get respectable jobs, working professionals in their 30s and 40s depressed because they can't afford to buy a house after working their tails off, our veterans frustrated because they can't get entitlements for medical issues, arguably caused from protecting this nation, college and high school students unclear about a career path after graduation. And we can't forget our indigenous people having to still fight for necessities like fresh water and electricity. It's just not acceptable. I'm African American, obviously, but I don't want to just focus on my race's issues because it wouldn't be fair to the many other races out there that are in need. But my point is, we can all do better. If we leverage regional partnerships, workforce development, economic diversification, industrial planning, and innovation in the climate space, we can identify and develop investment projects that build an inclusive, equitable, and economic future for LA County. This is going to require the stakeholders to be upskilled and reskilled in growing sustainable industry sectors that we'll be talking about later on: aerospace, bioscience, construction, transportation, healthcare. We can't leave out entrepreneurship. No business gets started, is launched unless it's started first. This program has given us the opportunity to develop strategic projects in these sectors that resolve climate change issues in our region. And if we do it right, those strategic projects will become the livable wage jobs in the climate space. But at the same time, we can't ignore the elephant in the room, and that's race. We have to develop an equitable process for all races in LA County to understand the opportunities and threats from the research about our region, validate that research, or challenge it. You don't have to accept it. We encourage you to challenge it. But ultimately, we have to work toward developing strategic projects that work for everyone in LA County. The information you provide today in surveys, I don't know if you guys put up the QR code for the surveys. If you haven't, please do. Make sure you do. The information you provide in that will be integrated into the final regional plan for Los Angeles County that highlights your suggestions to state officials and legislators who can initiate and invest and change for the better. That's what today's forum is about. So on our agenda, as Jay kind of spoke, we're going to have summarized reports from work that the stakeholders in California Jobs First program have already done. You'll be hearing information on that. We have guest speakers. Stella, please tell me you're coming up. That's our environmental justice expert. She's fantastic. We have time for the breakout room sessions, the question and answer periods, and we have some amazing food, so stick around for that as well. Right now, I wanted to bring up one of the brains of the California Jobs First program, Armand Koulian. He is the research analyst for the California Jobs First program. Armand, bring your big brain up here. Do you guys have a stand for him?
Yeah, sure. It's kind of better. Hello, everybody. And thank you, Charles, for the introduction. As he said, I'm the research analyst for the team, so I'll be presenting some research that we've done over the last year and a half. I'm just waiting for the presentation to come up in the meantime. But I guess I can get started. So this presentation is going to be drawing primarily off of 3 different sources of data. So we have our regional plan part 1, which includes a regional summary, which has socioeconomic conditions in LA County, broken down at the service planning area level, which I'll explain in a second. It also has a labor market analysis, which is just going into labor conditions, occupations, and wages in LA County. And then it has an industry cluster analysis, which also goes into industry in LA County. The second source of information are from convenings or meetings that were held with community through outreach as a part of our program. And the third source is survey data. So we collected over 2,500 surveys, which we analyzed, which we'll be presenting the results for. not West Side, South Los Angeles, but SPA 5 West, one of the more prosperous parts, 54% of the population, over half of the population has bachelor's degrees. I'll just continue speaking on. There's another index that's not on the screen right now, but it's referring to resilience. What this found is that the highest share of populations the highest share of households without access to internet are in South Los Angeles. That's 14%. It's 4.4% for comparison in the highest performing service planning area. And the average age of properties is also 1960 and older. So between 1950 and 1960 is the average age of properties. So it's pretty old compared to the rest of the county. We go to the next slide. Next one, please. So I'm not going to be discussing the labor market analysis. There's a few key findings. It's a bit hard to see these graphs right here, but I'll just summarize them. So there's a graph at the bottom which shows labor force participation for different age groups over the last 30 years. The key takeaway is that people that are under the age of 19, so 16 to 19, are participating in the labor force at almost half what they were 30 years ago. So we had twice as much 16 to 19-year-olds either looking for employment or were actively employed 30 years ago. But on the flip side, we have a lot more older individuals above the age of 50 who are now currently involved in the labor force. So that's on the flip side. That does reflect that we have an aging population in California and Los Angeles County as a whole. The chart to the top just shows differences in labor force participation according to educational attainment. We see that there's 4 brackets: less than high school graduate equivalency, some college or associates, and bachelor's degree. So for individuals who have less than a high school graduate, we see that they participate in the labor force at a rate of 67%. High school graduates participate at 75%. Some college or associate's degree is 81%, and a bachelor's degree is 88%. So that's 20% difference between bachelor's degree and less than a high school graduate. So there is a significant difference there. So what are some challenges that we found to participating in the labor force? There's a housing crisis in Los Angeles, which we all are aware of. There's an issue with educational attainment, access to education that's relevant to individuals in different parts of the community. Childcare also comes up as a challenge. Transportation, commute times are ridiculous, and access to resources. Next slide. So the next slide is just it just has some quotes with some key takeaways. So they use this data thing, this statistic, which is called prime age. So that's 25 to 54, when the economists would really expect someone to be participating in the labor force. And they find that there's 72,000 people in LA County that are in prime age 25 to 54 that are not participating. So who makes up this group? 65% of these individuals, of the 72,000, are females, and almost half are Latino. So this goes back to something we identified in the last slide as it relates to the women or females and how they participate in the labor force. Our research found that foreign-born females are less likely to participate, but the opposite is true for foreign-born men, who are more likely to participate. A more pressing and perhaps relevant thing that they found that was more obvious was that women with more children are less likely to participate in the labor force regardless of marital status. So they compared the way that the labor force participation drops for men and women who may have one child. For women, it drops significantly, but for men, it doesn't change. And actually, it may have increased once a man has a child. So this points to a barrier, which is childcare. Are we providing childcare options that are affordable for individuals, for single mothers, or for married mothers who may have a partner in the house, but they have children? The second statistic is referring to labor force participation for folks that have disabilities. So we see that it's significantly lower among prime age and older adults who have a disability, but it does seem to have increased since the pandemic. The largest difference that we found between two groups in labor force participation, so this could be groups, it could have compared two groups racially, it could have been comparing groups of educational attainment, but the biggest difference they saw is between individuals who either have a disability or don't have a disability. That's the biggest difference. Finally, the last quote here is referring to differences among racial groups. So what the research found is that if you look at prime-aged individuals of different racial groups who have a college degree, participation is nearly 90% across Asian, Black, Latino, and white adults. However, if you look at lower levels of educational attainment, specifically those lacking a high school diploma, the rates vary a lot and it gets a lot lower. So once you look at individuals who have less than a high school diploma and they're Latino, it's a 74% participation. And if you look at Black individuals who do not have a high school diploma, it's 48%. So the recommendation from this analysis was if you eliminate educational attainment gaps, that could close racial gaps in participation. Next slide. As a part of this program, we identified 7 priority sectors in LA County that identify with the goals of the program. So these are sectors that pay a good wage. They don't require too much education. They may just require certification, some college work, but they do not require bachelor's degrees for the most part. To be more specific about the wages, we saw that these industries they have careers that pay above $70,000 on average, and I'll mention them. And we're also thinking of the sustainability angle. So some of them are key to the infrastructure of the city, but they're not green yet. Some are already kind of going green. So to vocalize what the 7 industries are is transportation and logistics is the first one. This one includes occupations like flight attendants, truck drivers, freight agents, clerks, sales representatives who don't require a bachelor's degree, but they pay good wages. Both ports in LA County, we have the 2 busiest ports in North America, the LA and Long Beach port are transitioning to carbon neutrality. So there's a sustainability angle, and we have a regional concentration in LA. Video production and distribution, that is thinking about like motion picture. It's a very fancy way of saying motion picture industry. This is LA's most concentrated industry. It's our most famous industry in a sense. Hollywood, that's what we think about when we think of video production distribution. We have Sasheen. She's going to speak about it later. I just seen Sasheen. But so this was growing until the strikes of 2023. It pays a great wage, and many positions do not require formal education. But as I learned from Sasheen, there's a challenge to revitalize the industry, and there's a real challenge to get folks that aren't connected into the industry. Aerospace is another legacy LA industry that pays a good wage. We've seen recent growth in aircraft, guided missile, and space vehicle manufacturing. And the concentrations are in South Bay, so think Long Beach and San Fernando Valley. Antelope Valley is historically seen as an area with a strong aerospace industry, but they have slightly declined over the last few years with the big companies leaving Antelope Valley. The next 4 industries, if you go to the next slide. So the next 4 we identified: clean and renewable energy. This is something that's growing across LA County. It's not a very large industry in LA County at the moment, but as our cities and county, state, nation, world transitions to a cleaner economy, cleaner energy sources, renewable energy sources, this is going to be growing as well. So we have some good careers here paying $80,000 on average. I like to say on average, so maybe not the starting salary, but on average. Occupations like electricians, clerks, installers, telecommunications employees that don't require 4-year education, 4-year degrees. We have healthcare, which is another strong industry in LA County. It's the largest industry in the county. It pays a good wage, and it's increasingly important. As I mentioned earlier, we have an aging population. We see increases in home and outpatient care and mental health services, a lot of certificate opportunities in healthcare that don't require a degree. Construction, which is kind of historically typically seen as a good career for individuals who don't have that much education, and it does deserve that reputation because it has good paying jobs that don't require bachelor's degrees, paying over $70,000 on average. There's a push to have green construction initiatives and green buildings, so that's becoming increasingly important. And we're thinking about occupations like carpenters, plumbers, fitters, clerks, drywall, AC installers. And then finally, we have the bioscience industries, which suffers from an image issue because people think bioscience and they think that it's a very sophisticated work that's going on that's not applicable to me. I can't do it. I don't have a PhD. But it turns out that many positions don't actually require even a 4-year degree in bioscience. These are positions paying $85,000 on average across LA County, things like technicians, operators, manufacturing, and testers. Next slide, please. So this is a general SWOT. You can see this in the report. We go to the next slide. You can keep going. You go a couple. One more. Thank you. So I'm going to quickly go over the key challenges and opportunities from the convenings. Like I said, we had 50 plus convenings that was held from organizations which were contracted by our initiative. They found that there's some economic and social barriers in LA County and workforce and community issues. So just to touch upon some of the economic and social barriers, there's a need for capital and technical assistance for disadvantaged businesses. There's a lack of hyper-local training programs and coordinated employer matchmaking. And then, of course, there's the things that we all may be familiar with: housing crisis, high inflation, systematic racism affecting education, employment, health, and well-being, and the digital divide, as we mentioned earlier. Workforce and community issues. There's a lack of job training and education for older adults, non-English speakers, and marginalized communities. We have to ensure that job conditions are good so folks stay in careers and they have opportunities to advance. And high school dropout rates are also seen as an issue for LA County at large. In the next slide, we see the key opportunities. So these are looking to capitalize upon certain things. So something that comes up in the opportunities is leveraging events like the Olympics. I think that the Olympics seems to be kind of, people are divided about the benefits to their community, but I'm just reporting the data. So this is what folks said in outreach, that they wanted to leverage events like that. Involving diverse organizations and communities in planning. LA County is extremely diverse. We have a lot of diversity in thought. Civic organizations are growing rapidly in LA County, so we need to make sure we involve it. It's seen as a strength, that diversity. And then, of course, things that I've worked in the past are apprenticeships, early career pathways, and accelerator programs. Next slide. The next, you could go like, keep going. One more. Thank you. Okay, so I'm just trying to get through this right now. Just want to get mainly to the content of the surveys. The things that I skipped over, so this is the sub-regional table surveys. We collected 2,660 surveys. Something that's important to note for any folks that are doing community outreach is that 48% were contacted in person. So even in this digital age, that is an effective method of outreach and communication. Participants were offered gift cards for completing the surveys and attending meetings. There was at least 200 survey respondents in each service planning area. Females comprised 59% of respondees. And something else that I went over from those other slides, when it comes to the age breakdown, the majority of respondents were over 35, but we still had about over 500 surveys from individuals who were under the age of 24. We got representation from veterans, single parents, underemployed adults, justice-involved youths, low-wage earners or underemployed adults, business owners, aspiring entrepreneurs, homeless, and immigrants. And then we also have a racial breakdown that I skipped over. We got representation, over 950 respondents from people who identify as Black or African American, over 1,000 responses from people who identify as Hispanic or Latino, and about 280 responses from individuals who identify as Asian. So what are the contents of these surveys? Here's one question. So what do you perceive as the primary barriers to your personal economic advancement? We see affordable housing is the number one thing that comes up. But when we think more about outcomes that this program can affect, childcare comes up frequently, with nearly 470 individuals noting childcare as an issue. Health and healthcare, 780 people noted that. Education, 1,000 people noted education as a challenge, as a barrier to their personal economic advancement. technology, 390 people, and access to social networks. What major obstacles do you believe prevent you or your family members from accessing high quality jobs in LA County? So this is a theme that we saw in the surveys. I mentioned it previously: access to social networks, access to capital, and also knowledge about high growth industries is a very common reason that people believe that they themselves or their family members cannot access high quality jobs in LA County. People just feel like they don't know the industry, they don't know the job, and then they don't even have the way to learn. So there's a disconnect here between the research that folks produce and then getting the community to be engaged with that research. So if we go to the next slide, just some more qualitative aspects of the survey data. 72% of respondents said they are not connected to local resources. So going back to that fact that we mentioned earlier, where these respondents were saying that they don't have the knowledge about it. They're not even connected to the resources to begin with. So I have to think of a process to go from the knowledge, the resources, to the career. 86% of respondents said they're not a member of any union, and 20% said they feel that they're at risk of losing their job in the next year. When we surveyed entrepreneurs, we found that a lack of funding and access to resources were commonly cited as challenges. Next slide. So yeah, the next slide has a question. Do you believe that your community, so it's going to be discussing opportunities. In the same way we had from the convening data, challenges, opportunities, we're doing barriers, obstacles, and now opportunities. So these are kind of centered around the clean energy future and transition to carbon neutrality in California. So do you believe that your community will benefit from state investments for a clean energy future? 61% of respondents said yes, and 30% said maybe. So only 9% of people straight up said no. That's a good sign. What do you believe are the best ways you and your community members might be able to participate in this transition? The most common answer was installing residential solar. The second most common is adding green spaces, trees, and shade. And third was just accessing training or jobs. People contribute by working, installing solar, adding green spaces. Next slide. Final slide. So I hope no one's asleep. Okay. Last slide, guys. 40% of respondents said they are not familiar at all with California's goals for a clean energy future. So this is seen as an opportunity. Once again, folks don't have the knowledge, but they're excited about it. 70%, about 90% straight up said, I am interested in this. And so just a lot of folks feel like they don't know where to start. They don't know the industry. They don't know where the resources are. So the challenge is, how do we connect respondents to opportunities? 74% of respondents said they are interested in learning more about steps as California transitions to a clean energy future. When we think about once they get that knowledge, once we get them connected, individuals cited apprenticeships specifically are really seen as like a good way forward. Training, internships, and just connecting with educational opportunities. And as I noted earlier, something else that we saw in the survey is just the importance of in-person job centers and mentorships, making sure that there's that physical connection with a mentor that may be trying to guide an individual through this new process in their life. So that's the whole presentation. Thank you, everybody.
Or were those region-wide? For the sub-regional table questions, the results that you came back, particularly on the opportunities, were those statistics and results for SPA 6A and 6B, meaning the communities that we're here to represent, or was that the region-wide? That was county-wide.
Okay, my question is this. I was born and raised here in LA, and this is where LA went wrong. You have to start with the educational system. I was in LA Unified when it was a real school district, where students, we had what they call a major or emphasis on what your track was going to be. We went from junior high. When we left junior high, we had an emphasis of what we were going to do in high school. They don't have that now. They closed down the public schools, took the system out of the public schools, and gave it to charter schools. So now you have more kids in charter schools than you have in public schools. So public schools are not doing anything for these children but warehousing them. All those systems you talked about, as far as being able to have access, we had access to that. The reason why you have, because I started at a McDonald's job, okay? I was 16. You have 35-year-old grown people taking young people's jobs. So they're not able to even get experience. That's what's happening. We used to have, Goodyear used to be a major industry in this city. Goodyear's been gone for 50 years. What have the politicians done to bring industry into this city so people could have some place to work? So all I'm saying to you is, I don't know what years you're getting this data from, because when I was growing up here and when Tom Bradley was the mayor, we didn't have these issues. Ever since Tom Bradley stopped being the mayor, and you concentrate a whole lot of poor people in one area, you get those statistics that you're reading off now. So it's not so much that you're collecting the data. You're talking about correcting 50 years, and then you want to bring in new industry. In what high school or any of those programs you talked about are in this area? Where are the programs at? Even in the public school, where are those courses that are going to lead these students to be able to access aerospace, which is going to take engineering? What high school around here has an engineering program in it? So you got to start with the systemic stuff. And I may be getting a little heated because I've been seeing Los Angeles decline. My family's been here over 100 years, and this is in the garbage can. We can't get trash picked up over here. And you talk about carbon neutral and want to be clean. Are you kidding me? So I get these stats, but you got to start with some basic stuff. And if you want aerospace, because if Elon Musk takes that SpaceX from over Hawthorne, what are you getting ready to do? So I could go on.
No, thank you for that. So one of the things that I want to make sure isn't lost, because we're going to be talking about race and region today, is the fact that these challenges that Armand laid out didn't come from like out of the blue overnight. These are things that are the result of decisions and choices and an evolution that has happened over a period of time. What would be really helpful, so if you yourself are either affiliated with LAEDC or this initiative or your own nonprofit, please raise your hand and look around. Look around. Right? All these people here are trying to work on this. So what would be really helpful throughout the day when we have Q&A and when we, get to eat together, please make sure you introduce yourselves to each other and call it like you see it. I see Dr. Dorsey over here, been working with people for decades, right? Like, please talk about the specific challenges in the same way you did, and thank you so much for your comments, right? Because in order for us to make sure that our various initiatives are going to be effective, we need to start with what's real, right? We need to actually help people where they are in the situations they find themselves in. So thank you again for the comment, right? And we're not done with that conversation, okay? Okay. Any last Q&A? Because I'm supposed to be bringing up somebody who is actually going to talk about some resources, and I don't want that to get lost.
Hello, I'm from the Chinatown Service Center, and we are a nonprofit CBO that works primarily with the elderly and immigrants in SPA 4, Metropolitan Los Angeles. So I just this morning came back from a homeless outreach helping the homeless individuals apply for benefits in California that will allow them to live with more dignity than they are afforded by our system. And more so when because we are a sub-regional table lead, and we held a lot of surveys of our constituents in our area. Right. So a lot of the people that we help are elderly and non-English speaking. So how much of this data is biased towards those who thought that they have more of a voice and who speaks English? So that I feel like a lot of my constituents, and this is really heartfelt, when I asked them, translate it word by word of the survey in their own in language, that this is the first time they've heard someone ask them these questions. And it's first time they felt seen and felt that the opinions mattered. So I remember that when we were doing the survey, we had surveys translated in Spanish and Korean. And I just wish that with because majority of us are working here as CBOs, that we could provide more surveys in multiples of languages so that we can get opinions from people who felt like they are not heard, right? 10 million people in Los Angeles, 60% of them are Latinos and Asian Americans. Majority of elderly people in those populations are monolingual in a non-English speaking language. So it's time that we provide more resources and opportunities for them to voice their opinions so that they don't feel like they're left behind by a sustainable future, and rather they're participating in it together.
That's a great comment. Armand, do you know if there's a way for us to distribute those surveys in other languages?
To distribute them?
Yeah.
Well, we have a translator service. So when it came to the translation, the process for this is that sub-regional table leads, which were the 90 that were contracted to do the survey, they were allowed to make a request to our administrative team, and we would then send the survey to be translated to another language. So when it comes, just to give some quick data, the majority of the surveys, like I think only about 100 or maybe 200, 100 to 200 were from the Spanish version. We had 4 from the Korean version, and then the rest of them came from the English. So, I mean, yeah, this may have just been like a communication issue between organizations because we didn't get a request for any of the languages. But yeah, definitely hear what you're saying.
And what I would say, so thank you, first of all, so
Yeah,
much
thank
for that comment and observation, especially those of you who have been part of this process of trying to get the surveys out. If there were logistical impediments that made it harder for you to reach your constituents, please let us know, because part of what we're going to do when we kind of wrap up and round up all the information and the insights is we will also talk a little bit at least about process to make sure that when it comes to data collection, we can do better as we move forward. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. And thank you, Armand, for the overview.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, so I don't want to bore you with a lot of information before we get to conversations, but this next bit of information is really important. I want to introduce Luis, if you would come on up. One of the things that we realized as we started these events is that we didn't really talk more about the context in which all of this stuff is happening and some of the resources that are going to get freed up and made available to folks who are doing social impact work. And Luis has really been on top of this all along and has been working in the community for quite some time. And so we asked him to share that information with us. So I'm going to give you the mic.
Thank you so much. Like you said, my name is Luis Portillo. I'm the president and CEO for the San Gabriel Valley Economic Partnership. I'm also on the steering committee for the Los Angeles County California Jobs First program. So I wanted to come by and talk today. I have a brief presentation about some of the funding opportunities that are coming up. Because ultimately, as much as we want to talk about some of these issues and kind of vent, unless somebody's willing to dedicate resources to it, nothing's going to change. And that's where this whole thing started. Back in about 2022, the state decided, hey, we want to address some of these challenges, and we want to dedicate $600 million for communities to develop programs, to look at what their economies are focused on. Because as much as we may talk about how California's economy is the 5th largest in the world, look, we don't have one economy. We have about 6, maybe 10 different economies. There's the Bay Area economy, Central Valley economy, LA economy, Inland Empire. So it's all those areas. Do we have the presentation on? And so the state pretty much said, hey, we're giving $600 million to do this work. They broke up the state into 13 different regions. LA County was one of those regions. They said, hey, we're going to give you guys $5 million for planning. And so what that means is we took that money, we started doing a bunch of research, getting better understanding of what exactly the economy of LA County looks like, what are the industries that are growing, and there was a couple of criteria that the state said we want you to focus on. We want you to focus on industries that have good paying jobs. We want you to focus on industries that are going to be complementary to our climate goals, meaning they're non-polluting, and we want you to focus on industries that are going to be growing. And so based off of that, the group took it and identified 8 key industries that said, hey, these are the industries that we think for LA County provide the most opportunity, make them have the biggest potential for growth, and we want to focus on. So that was the planning part. What's happening now is we're finalizing the second part of the plan, which is, hey, what ways can we enhance and support those industries? And that's why your voice is critical right now, because you want to make sure that if there are certain industries that you want to target, that they will be included in that plan. Because if they're not, it's not going to get funded. So somebody said, this place has, let's keep going through the slide. First off, this place has about 20 black businesses, but retail isn't one of those industries that we've identified as, hey, we want to support for growth. But other places in the state have gotten funding for those types of programs. So we want to make sure that whatever plan we have is crafted in such a way that it shows that or at least provides the flexibility to fund those types of programs. Because you could say, hey, here's what we want to do. So I would say take a look at what they're putting together and make sure that whatever plan you have in mind, that plan at least provides the flexibility to do it. So let's keep going a couple of slides over. So these are the 8 industries. So clean energy, aerospace, transportation, logistics, bioscience, construction, healthcare. Let's go, next slide. And so, as I mentioned, this is what happened. So they gave us $5 million for planning. Then they gave us another $14 million for the pre-development known as the Catalyst program. Of that $14 million, $9 million is available to fund programs. And that's going to be coming up available, I think, as early as September. So in about a month or so, applications are going to start coming out asking, do you have an idea? Do you have a proposal that you want to submit on how to target certain communities and making sure there's economic opportunities? Now, my frustration is that's enough for LA County. We got 10 million people. And this is where, point blank, we kind of got screwed. Because, as I mentioned, the state was broken up into 13 regions. One of the regions, let's pick the other ones, is Eastern Sierra region. Consists of about 7 counties along the Nevada border, kind of the Lake Tahoe area. 7 counties, large number of counties, but they have about 200,000 people. So they were given the exact same amount of money to do their planning, to do their funding, as LA County was, that has 10 million people. So when you look at that, it's frustration. But that's where it's important, because I hear some of the frustrations here, and our leaders need to understand, like, hey, here, we're not getting our fair share. And so, but anyway, so we want to really go above and beyond and get as many applications as possible. We want to be able to go back into the state and say, hey, we got requests for $50 million worth of programs, and you're telling us we can only have 9 million to work with. We need you guys to, one, we know some of those other regions aren't going to use up their money. We need you to take that money that goes in use, give it to us. We have more than enough requests for it. And so that's where it's going to be critical that we leverage our state assembly members, our state senators, our supervisors, our congressional members, calling the administration saying, hey, we need to get our share. But in order to do that, we need to make sure that we're not only using up all the money that's been given to us, we're going way above and beyond. So, and then the other slide, a pot of money that we have to deal with is the implementation phase. The governor, the state has approved $150 million over 3 years, so $50 million this year to fund programs, but that's going to be available for anyone throughout the state. But again, those are going to be the critical efforts. So right now, I want to talk about a couple of the pots of money that we have to work with. So the $9 million one is going to be coming up. We're going to be getting word as what type of, is there funding limits? Is there a limit how much you can ask for? Is there, how many requests you can submit? But the sense is we want to get as many of those submitted as possible. And those will be coming up in September. Those will go before the LA County Steering Committee, which is made up of community-based organizations, of labor groups, all those folks, and they're going to look at them and then identify a certain number of projects that they're going to send up to the state to get funded. Next slide. And there's 2 types of projects that are going to be funded out here. And this is where it's critical, but it's also kind of good. So the first type are exploratory projects. These are the ones where you have an idea for something. It could be a proof of concept. It could be, hey, I think we should be able to take a group of high school students, identify, to have them pitches for a business they want to start, and I want to be able to give them each of them $10,000, connect them with mentors, with attorneys, marketers, HR people who can guide them, help them start that business and prove from scratch. Cool, something like that. Whatever your idea is, that's the perfect one because it says, we don't need to have anything. You don't need to have any kind of studies have done. Nothing's done. It's literally a back of the envelope. I have this idea. Let me write it out, put it together, and pitch it. So it could be a proof of concept. The second one is the last mile projects. Now, some of these may say, hey, this may be something that's already happening, that's ongoing, but we think it's supporting the type of efforts that the state is trying to do. So it could be like, hey, this location, small could be that type of thing where we have this place. We want to be able to, purchase a couple more store shops. We want to then be able to use those for, guide them to small businesses to be able to open it up and reduce rates, whatever it might be you want to do. And that's going to be the two biggest types of funding for the Catalyst program. So that's going to be $9 million. Next slide. And then the last one's going to be ready to go projects. And that's going to be the money, that $50 million that's coming from the state, where they're saying, hey, we're looking at pretty much comprehensive projects, something that's ready to go, something where a lot of the permits have been done, a lot of the feasibility studies have been done. You've identified other funding sources, but you're still needing some additional more money, or we're waiting on approvals on some things, but you're looking at that. And that one's going to be the big competition one. Next slide. So some of the stuff that could get funded for some of the feasibility studies, it could be, purchase land, do studies, establish revolving loan funds. Next slide. The one thing that catches me on here is, again, developing a new pilot or demonstration project program. Because sometimes we have an idea and we say, I just need to show it works. I need to prove to you, look, if we can do this, it'll work, it'll be successful. Let me do it on a small scale, and then we can expand it out big. But I need the money, that seed money, to be able to do that proof of concept. That's what this provides. If you want to say, hey, we want to work with an existing program that's already existing, that we think if we expand it out, we can do a lot more, that's what this money is funding for. So let's go. And so with all these programs, here's some general stuff. And some of these are drafts, so they're subject to change, but you're gonna have to do, identify project overview, what services and benefits you're providing, who is the project sponsor, any partnerships you have, potential risks, get approval from the California Jobs First Collaborative, how does it tie in with the states? And this is where I know sometimes that's gonna be a challenge for a lot of the small nonprofits, because you're like saying, hey, we have a small organization, we don't have folks who do all this type of work. Recommend, one, work together and kind of say, hey, we don't need to do it on your own. And it's frankly probably encouraged that you do it as part of a larger group. So if you have let's say a bigger organization that you work with, that you say, hey, you know what, we get funding from, let's say, United Way. They provide us some funding support, and say, hey, go to them and say, hey, we want to do a request for our city, for our region, and we want you guys to be the person who's applying for it. But as part of that grant, we get a contract to do this work related for it. So that way, you're still getting the resources, but you're not having to put it all together. You can leverage their resources. They may have in-house staff person who does grant writing, who does the applications on a continuing basis. So again, don't let that overwhelm you. There's some core things, next slide, that we really try to focus on. So there's a couple of things that the state is saying. Equity has to be a big important of it. So at least 40% of the funds have to provide direct, meaningful, and a benefit to disinvested communities. We don't want somebody saying, oh yeah, we're gonna help minority communities, and there's no way to really verify this. So we need to have some of that. There has to apply with some of the executive orders the governor has issued on racial equity. It has to support our climate change goals. Again, we're not going to be trying to build a new gas plant. That completely undermines what the governor is trying to do when it comes to our environment. Next slide. And then also, again, access to high quality jobs is an absolute core. The main thing is we want to support high paying jobs. So we're not trying to support industries that are minimum wage jobs. So these are some of the criteria that don't need to meet. Keep going. And I wanted to share, so earlier this year, or actually early in 2023, the governor took about $40 million of the money that was allocated for this program and said, we're going to do some pilot projects because we don't wait for people to be that far along. We want to show that we're doing something with it now. And they funded a number of projects. And I wanted to point out a couple on here. First one was Alchemist Public Market. They got $7.8 million. It's a project in Sacramento in the River District where it's going to build a pipeline for underserved entrepreneurs to start new food businesses, provide workforce development for individuals that have facing barriers to employment, say they have a criminal background. And then, but again, they want to try to attract a place where they can really provide access to food, access to entrepreneurial opportunities, and really kind of grow that space. Next slide. For LA County, they gave the PACE Green Loan Fund program $5 million. That was a program that provides loans of anywhere from $25,000 to $500,000 for entrepreneurs working to grow, particular focus on high quality jobs and addressing climate issues in the LA region. So if you have an industry where you're working in that space, they'll give you loans of anywhere from $25,000 to $500,000. Next slide. In the Central Valley, they got $10 million for support their high road green jobs and prosperity efforts, which is again targeting minority communities, capital for business owners, helping them assist them, help them grow, really tie into their programs, which is food supplies in the state. The Latino Workers Enterprise Resilience Pathway was awarded $3.4 million. And again, another revolving loan fund to support businesses and incubation programs. Some of these programs, it could be is, hey, we want to fund more Black-owned businesses. Okay, great. We need a fund. Give us a pot of money that we can use out to dish it out, to divvy it up to people, to help them support their specific industries and help them grow. Because that's oftentimes the biggest challenge is we don't have access to capital. And that's where this type of program is meant to be. Hey, if you think that's going to be the most effective way, let's do that. Is there somebody who's doing it already? If there isn't, then that may be an opportunity. Let's go. So where are we at now? So as I mentioned, the monies for the Catalyst program are going to be coming up in the next month or two. Those applications are going to become open. I would recommend apply. So how do you get information on those? One, sign up, join the LA County Jobs First Collaborative. So it's lacerf.org. It's a website, and you can do a couple things. One, you can sign up as an individual. You can sign up as a nonprofit organization, or you can just sign up for their newsletter. Anything times will these requests go out and say, hey, applications are being accepted, it's going to be sent to the newsletter. So if you want to be aware of it, that's a great place to do it. And then two, again, I would recommend start talking with other organizations that you work with, that you have relationships with, and start brainstorming. Like, what can we do for our region? Saying, this is a grant of money, the type that hasn't been given, if ever. And so we want to show the state, not only are we going to take advantage of these resources, we're going to go request more than you are even giving us and show, look, you're giving us money, we're going to do good use of it, we're going to show it can be done well, but we want to take advantage of it. Otherwise, if they say, hey, we gave you guys 600 million, you guys used only 250. They're going to say, clearly that program doesn't work. That's the approach we want to do. We need to show that there's a demand, that there's a willingness to take it. And so I would say, work together, look at how you can leverage those relationships and brainstorm. Worst case scenario, you submit an application, it doesn't get approved. I knew somebody who once said, who was in charge of appointments for the governor, and he said, if you apply, I can't guarantee you'll get an appointment, but if you don't, I guarantee you won't. And that's kind of the same thing. If you apply for this funding, I can't guarantee you will get funding, but if you don't apply, I guarantee you won't get any money. So I would say, wanted to kind of make you aware of some of those areas that are coming down, because ultimately this has been a program that's been 2-3 years in the making. We're finally getting to the point where, okay, here's the money. Let's start getting the money out to the communities. Let's start getting out to folks. And we wanted to make sure you're aware that that's coming up pretty quickly, and make sure that you have the information about that so you can take advantage of it. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Luis. Stay there for a second. Any questions or comments? Any questions or
I have a
comments for Luis?
question. Okay, when it comes to funding, now you laid out, what was it, 8 industries that they're interested in, and that's clean energy, yada, 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 right? How many nonprofits out here is in clean energy?
Couple.
If you are, because they laid out the industries. Yeah, can you put that slide back up?
The industry.
Yeah, because after you decided, okay, you went through it, and these are the industries that the state decided are going to be best.
No, these are the industries that
Okay, wait a
we.
minute. I just need to put the slides back.
No, go ahead, go back. You passed it. Keep going. There you go.
Okay, those are the jobs, right? That's the focus.
Those are the industries that they said, one, these are good paying jobs.
Okay.
They're expected to grow and they support our environmental goals.
Okay, again, those are the jobs. How many nonprofits in there are in those particular industries?
Oh, so I would say 7 industries are going to be clean energy, renewable energy, aerospace manufacturing, transportation logistics, bioscience, video production distribution, construction, healthcare, and then we also listed financial strategy, which is meant to leverage that money.
Everybody got that? So are you guys in those particular industries? Okay, well, then that's what I want to know, because when I apply for grants and those type of things, I don't know if any other nonprofits are having those. Most of the grants are geared toward those industries.
Yeah.
That's not where I'm at.
But so if there's industries that you think should be considered, let the California Jobs First team know, because they need to incorporate that into our plan. Because if you're saying, hey, what other industries should we be on here that aren't on here? The California Jobs First team. So
what I did want to say, good afternoon, everyone, is I'm in education. So education is fluid. So if that's what we need to do to get the money, that's what we need to do to get the money. Like, they're not going to come to us. We need to be realistic about that. They're not going to come to us and say, hey, what do you want to do? Childcare, whatever. That might be big for us. But if that's what's going to help people sustain and pay for that childcare, we need to educate them into this space.
I was getting ready to say something. I just want you to know all of this is good in some areas and some not. But at any rate, we have to celebrate what we have going now. I'm a Head Start school teacher. And then I saw the thing up there about the people coming from out of jail. See, they need help too, so what I'm thinking about is how, to be able to develop something for the people getting out of jail. Because some of them they're in there for life and some are not. We got to re-educate these people, bring them back home.
Yeah, if you saw the program from Sacramento, they did have a component specifically for that. So I would say, take a look at some of those, because I'm always big at, hey, if it works for them, let's just do it. Let's just copy it. I don't need to reinvent the wheel. So, but if we say, hey, we have a large portion of people who got out of jail, but they still need to get opportunities, they still need to get training, they still need to get, then let's put something around them. Like, again, the state wants to kind of leverage whatever ideas people have.
Yes, hi, my name is David, and I'm the founder of Tower Compost. So one of the things I've noticed there is that you're missing soil, like jobs working with compost and renewable materials, for example, right? Because it starts with the soil. We have all these things because we grow things, and it could be bioscience, but it's not really clear. It has to be very clear. Why? Because even though there is a mandate in Los Angeles County to compost, I'll tell you something, I'm still getting shut down from different parts in the city because waste management companies, because neighbors don't like it, because people are not really educated. And in my new place, I actually had to pay like over $1,000 for a permit just to have a compost pile, even though that it's already, it's mandated. You need to do this. And nobody's gonna pay over $1,000 just to have a compost pile in their backyard. So I believe that putting it out there more clear for people to choose, be like, oh yeah, maybe I could make compost, which is needed.
So I would recommend that for the CJF team who's here, if we can look to how do we incorporate that into our plan and some of the other suggestions that were made.
Any last comments, questions? Well, we got 2. All right, we're going to take 2, and then we're going to go to our panel.
Hi, my name is Toy Shaw, and I'm from Chica. My question is more so I've seen several of these programs where we have these large sums of money that are geared towards our underserved community. So my question is, how will we establish a clear plan of accountability to ensure that funding actually reaches its target audience? For example, will we host another forum like this to talk about the results or the companies that actually were granted those fundings and what impact they've actually had on our community?
Yes.
I think that's a great point. I think that may be something, again, we need to be looking at incorporating as we submit the applications, not just ask, here's how you're going to use the money, but how are you going to report this? What's your metrics you're going to use to determine if it's been successful or not?
Me? Ready? Hi, my name is Kim Anthony. I'm with Urban Excellence, and I personally participated in the surveys. And so when I'm hearing the data, it doesn't sound like the answers that I was getting over and over again, because we focused obviously on SPA 6. Is there data and or programs that are targeted to the needs of service provider area 6?
So Luis, I'm going to ask you to make a point of emphasis that you've made before about how the funding is allocated.
Yeah, there's the steering committee is going to be looking at how it's going to distribute that money, those 9 million. So you can do a couple of things. There was talk about we want to submit 50 programs up to the state for approval. But if you break those up evenly, that's about 180,000 per program. It's not that much money. You could say, hey, we want to do, 5 programs where each one gets roughly $1 million or over $1.5 million. So they're looking at how do we fund that? How do we make sure that every region is covered so that all the money doesn't go to one part of the valley as well? And so, I think some of the initial stuff in the programs that were submitted to the state say, hey, we want to distribute the fund evenly through each SPA throughout the region so that everybody gets a certain amount. But even then, some of that money, those numbers didn't quite add up. Some are saying, hey, we want to limit any request to only $200,000. But that's what the steering committee is going to be looking at in the couple of upcoming meetings and determining what is it we want to look at. The state may ultimately be and say, hey, you're going to fund up to $100,000 per program per region. So they are going to be the ultimate say on it, because anything we approve still needs to go up to them for approval. But so that's something that's kind of still up in the air right now.
Thank you so much, Luis. You've been amazing. Thank you for answering the questions.
Yes, I'd like to know, line item 6 was construction. My company is a certified minority-owned business, general contractor. Is there funding to finance and help us for bidding, like performance bonds? You can't bid on a city, state, federal contract unless you have performance bond, yeah? $1 million performance bond. So you financial capital there. And if you're fortunate enough to get the bid, now you're going to need funding for startup costs, 25% startup costs, employees, taxes, insurance, and other materials and supplies. So can a minority-owned business in construction apply for those funds and receive them?
Yeah, I would say, well, again, we're ultimately, it's going to determine what the state, when they come out with their final guidelines as to what the criteria is. But I would say, again, toss out an idea. They're looking at not just targeting one particular business. They want to target a region or a sector. But I think if you're saying, here's some of the challenges we face as minority-owned businesses where we can't even get opportunity to bid on it, then what can the state do to put together something on it? And I would say, write something up and say, here's what a way we can do it. Is there a pot of money that they could dedicate that would allow people to use it to get to that space?
I participated in the workforce program, and I had a job at Chevron in high school making $40 an hour. And my other buddies, male and female, working at McDonald's for $5 an hour.
And that's where you may want to be, where there's some of those employers who are high-paying opportunities, and how do we target them, get them to create programs with them to create a pipeline of students coming from high school, students from community colleges, foreign institutions, to get them into those spaces. Oftentimes, that's going to be the biggest challenge. And I think when you look at a lot of folks, specifically, in the higher ed, who get frustrated because you're like, hey, I went to school for 4 years, I got a degree, now I can't get a job because they want someone with experience. But how am I supposed to get experience if nobody will hire me? And you're like, well, that's where the idea is that you're supposed to be getting internships throughout your process. You're supposed to be doing that type of work. But again, unless you know it, unless you have those relationships, like, I wouldn't know where to go if I wanted to go. I would say I want to do an internship with AT&T. I don't know who I call. I don't know. So, and I think to the extent that we're able to help build programs like that and say, we want to take a pipeline of students and get plugged into those spaces, because what we find that we do that, about 30% of them end up staying on with those jobs because they get people, you work with someone for a while, even a couple of weeks, you like them, hey, they're great. I don't have to question. I already know how your work ethic is. Let me keep you on. And sometimes it's just getting to that connection, knowing what's out there. And so I would say, to the extent that you have ideas on how that kind of program could be created, submit the request.
All right, I want to be sensitive to time because we have a panel that is about a half an hour behind schedule. So, Luis, you're going to be here during the meal period too? All right, so please, if you have other questions or comments for Luis, please come find him. And thank you so much. All right, I'm going to ask my panelists to come forward, please. Take your seats. I don't think I have a seat, but if you can come on up and take a seat here. I'm going to do this standing up, I think. Yeah. Turn that off. I got you. So Stella, yes. Sasheen, yes. Jay, nice to meet you. All right. Okay, you'll notice there are microphones in front of you. So if you move your seat, you're going to have to move the mic too. Well, you don't have a seat for Ted. Is Ted supposed to be on the panel as well? Let's give him a handheld. It's not Sterlina, so no. Sterlina, you're in the next one. Yes, it's Ted. Yeah, come on, quickly. Right after we eat, yes. Okay, so one of the things that we wanted to make sure we did with this experience was to give you a chance to hear from some of your peers who are doing impactful work in the community already, so that you can get a sense of a few things. One, the problems they're trying to solve. Two, kind of what they're observing and how they're going about their initiatives. And three, hopefully we'll have a chance to talk a little bit about what they've observed and what they've learned and what they can impart to you. So first, before we get into all of that, I'm going to just ask each panelist to introduce themselves. And this time I'm going to start on the far end with Sasheen and then come back this way with Ted and Stella and so on, okay? Sasheen, please.
Hi there, my name is Sasheen Artis, and I am a producer. I'm the founder of Plenty of Pie, which is a production accelerator and talent incubator located here in Spa 6.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ted Milner. I own an agency with my wife called Executive Temps, and we supply admin support and executive support to the studios and networks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stella Ursua, and I am one of two vice chairs for the California Jobs First Steering Committee, and I also serve as a Sustainability Affinity Hub lead. My day job, I work at Grid Alternatives, Greater Los Angeles, and we install solar for families that need help with their energy bills that want to, and folks that also want to enter the solar industry.
Good evening. I'm Charlotte Hendy Newbill. I am an educator, LAUSD. I've been a part of this district and area for about 25, 26 years. I currently work for the board here in LA Unified District 1, which is a part of the same SPA area, as an educational policy advisor.
Okay, so first, can you talk a little bit about the work that you've been doing and share with this group? I think we need to bring the energy up a little bit. any kind of point of success or point of emphasis to give people a little bit of hope? We'll start on this side this time.
So point of success, as mentioned, I know was asking about within the school sites, are there opportunities for our students? There are opportunities within our schools through what is called career technical education. Career technical education is new, kind of folded back in. We know many of our vocations were taken out of our schools. Career technical education has been back in our schools to bring back those vocations that were removed with educators who not necessarily went into education as a first choice. They came in with the experience from their craft to be able to bring that to our students. And so our students are getting opportunities from those educators who this is second choice for them as far as education. So we do have hope in that. And then also partnering with our community colleges to see apprenticeship programs where our students can get skill sets while they are in high school, and it's free. And I think that's the part that's missing, is that there's a lot of opportunities, there's a lot of programs available, but we don't know about it. And so that's why this is so important and critical, is to be able to get the word out that there are opportunities afforded to our students now from 9th grade through 12th grade, that they can be certified when they're finished with high school.
So I want to, before I move on to Stella, because she's got some great stuff to talk about as well, can you just unpack a little bit of that? Because we had a comment earlier about how our education system isn't providing those opportunities, and I would love for you to lay out a few more specifics about what students will have access to going forward.
So specific, even to this community here. So and I'm a proud product of LAUSD. Down the street, Dorsey High School, all right, green and white. And I say that because at Dorsey, we have a hospitality program. There's educators there that are teaching our students how to do what we're seeing happen right behind us, cater to events like such. Those students are getting opportunities to go off to college to hone in on that craft from educators who are doing it right now. Those students are working in the field today before they graduate high school. Another opportunity, and I'm gonna stay on Dorsey because it's within this community. We're going to be partnering with a new bakery there. They're going to build out a bakery so that those students are getting trained to become bakers, to work in areas like Costco. It's not happening everywhere. This is happening in this community. And again, many don't know about it. We know Dorsey has a reputation for athletics. We understand that, but there's other things happening within this community. Down the street at Audubon, we have a charter, and we know charter has done some things to our community public schools because they're trying to share the same dollars that they shouldn't be trying to share and make their programs elite. And so we can go into a whole charter conversation, but charter was providing innovation. And if it's not providing innovation, then it's not doing what it's supposed to do. And so there is one, music arts on Audubon's campus, which with Ivan, that program there is preparing kids to be able to go into music engineering, doing it right now. So there are programs that exist. Again, it's getting the word out there. How do I get a part? How do we become a part of it? How do I get my certification? At Dorsey, same thing. They got a sports medicine program. When kids leave there, they're already CPR certified. They're able to tape ankles. They're able to service on, athletic programs. So they go into college or certification program already skill set with certification in hand. So that's some examples of what's happening locally. And then I could expand out if people were out. There's teacher programs where kids are learning how to become child providers in high school today. So there are opportunities out there.
Thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful. Stella.
Great example, great stories. Thank you for that question, Jay. And so some things that we're really excited about is the fact that we're going to be doing even more solar. We're going to be installing solar for families that need help with their energy bills. We've already served about 3,000 families across LA County. We're getting more money to do more work. We're going to be installing battery storage systems now, right? We're also working on the clean mobility side, on charging stations, trying to connect folks to electric vehicles. All of those things are jobs. And I'm telling you, there's not enough folks out there that know about these jobs. We have been looking for folks for the past 6 months, 9 months, and it is really, it's like pulling teeth.
But Stella, what if I need training?
Let's say it again.
What if I need training?
We're going to provide you that training. I'm telling you, we got a 13-week program to start out with, right? And we work with folks that have been formerly incarcerated, women that are down on their luck, that are, trying to get their lives back together for one reason or another, youth, opportunity youth, folks that are looking to get into green industries. And so we've got the training, and we've got lots of partners that we're working with to connect you to other opportunities as well, employment opportunities. So we're really excited about that. We've already trained about 4,000 individuals across California. We're in Colorado, DC. We're even opening up some work, starting some work in Puerto Rico. We just trained a cohort of women to install solar over in Puerto Rico. So that's
Love it.
huge right there.
So I just want to double click on this and make sure that the point is made. Because you provide the training, every time there is a new application for solar, right? Whether it's, external long-term storage, right? Big batteries and stuff like that, generators, different kinds of solar panels, et cetera. That's another opportunity to provide a skill set and provide people with jobs, correct?
That's right, absolutely.
Right. So as we move into this green economy, you are one of the conduits that's actually allowing people to get plugged in.
Absolutely. We're working very closely with workforce development organizations, with community colleges, with other nonprofit organizations to connect folks to these, to this training and to careers in these particular industries. So it's a lot of work, heavy lifting, but we're out here, we're trying to make it happen. We have good partners out in the audience there. I see Linda and Jackie, Commissioner Badejo, folks that we're already working with. So, if you're interested, please contact us. We'll work together on this.
Okay, now I also want to get into other kinds of experiential learning and to drill down a little bit more on film and TV and entertainment, because again, as Armand pointed out earlier, that's one of the key industries here in LA. And sometimes it feels like folks in the community don't get put on, right? Like if you don't know Issa personally, you're not getting in. So let's talk about how that happens, because we have Ted here, who, when we talk about successes, he can also look to his left, but we'll get to that in a minute. But Ted here has been working in this space, trying to help people find opportunities in space for a long time. So you can talk about what you do and some of the successes that you've had.
So a little over 36 years ago, I used to play professional baseball. So I was in the minor leagues for several different teams, and most of my career is in the minor leagues. And so when I stopped playing, my wife was working at NBC, and she said, if I create two of myself, we could start a business. So we created an employment agency, and our first account was NBC. And then we just grew it over the years. And so some of the success stories, there's a woman that we placed at Oprah Winfrey as an assistant. She's now an associate producer. So on Oprah Sunday Best, she's at her house every time they're doing that show with Oprah on the weekend, and she's making really good money. Another woman was over at ABC and then went to BET. Now she's a EVP of Legal Business Affairs over at Skydance Media. There's a young girl that we placed at KCAL. Those two women are African American. There's a young white girl that we placed at KCAL probably about 15 years ago, just in a data entry job. And now when you turn on KCAL, Erica Olson is the face of KCAL. And so there's multiple people that we placed. There was a young Latino girl that came to us probably about 6 years ago. And each assignment that we placed her on, many assignments, few at ABC, a couple at Disney, a couple of other studios, we started getting negative complaints. And then when we would call her for employment, she would answer the phone like, "How can I help you?" And so my staff told me that. I said, next time she comes in, let me talk to her. So I sat her down, I talked to her. I said, listen, we got a couple of complaints from a couple of clients, and you're making it hard for me to send you out. I said, and then when we call you, you act like you're doing us a favor. You do know you work for me, right? And so she says, yeah, Ted. I said, listen, this is how it's perceived. It comes off cocky, and it comes off arrogant, and it comes off ungrateful. And I said, I need the Laura that came in here 4 months ago. Where is that girl? That's the one that I want to employ. And so she breaks down and starts crying and says, my parents tell me that all the time. And I promise I'll do better. You know, and so I said, listen, don't close the door for me because then I can't help you. Probably about 8 months later, she called me and told me that they hired her and promoted her. And now she's a manager of development over at ABC. So, you know, I think the biggest thing for people right now is really understanding that there is hope. And, you know, there's a lot of different ways to get into the place of your dream. I don't have all the keys. I know some of the keys, but there's multiple ways that you can do it. And so, you know, I'm always encouraging people, and I've seen it happen, but some of the things that are just necessary are just paying attention, loving people, being kind, being grateful. You know, people hire people that they like, you know, not people that you may think you deserve the job, but if they don't think you're qualified, then you can't get angry with them. You got to go get qualified, you know, or what do I need to do to get qualified? And so, you know, I've seen people's dreams come true. Some of the people that I mentioned and many others that I haven't mentioned, I mean, they're making 300,000, 200, 150 in bonuses. So, you know, it is possible. I know I was a family of 8. We were on welfare. We came up from nothing. My mother died when I was young. 2 years later, my brother died. And my grandmother, who we lived with, passed after that. So statistics says that I shouldn't even be here and have success. Many of the guys I grew up with, that I played ball with when I was younger, are either dead or in prison, you know, and it's just by the grace of God that I was put in a place where I could succeed. But what I've seen in interviewing thousands and thousands of people is most people don't really believe who they are, you know, what's really in them because of the current situation that they're in. So I'm always trying to raise people's level of belief that you really can. We need some help along the way, but I've seen people's dreams get manifested. I've seen their lives change. So, you know, most of us up here are not just up here to, you know, to encourage you and then you go home for the day. You know, I never like people getting up and just motivating you and then they bounce. They tell you how beautiful Hawaii is, but they never tell you how to get to Hawaii. You know, so, you know, I'm all about, okay, if you have a vision, you have a dream, how are we going to bring that to pass? So my wife's a dreamer, and she created this organization. And I'm not going to talk too long, okay? But she created an organization called EICOP, Entertainment Industry College Outreach Program. She also created Executive Temps, but I ran it. So she created this organization, and under that umbrella of that organization is HBCUs in LA. So we go to HBCUs and we bring those kids here to intern within the industry. 90% of those students for the past 10 years that we've been doing this are now working full-time within the industry, the seniors. So when they come here, you know, they're nervous, they're concerned about how do I navigate the space, but I've seen people's lives change just by being in the atmosphere and kind of learning. And I remember when it was a thought in my wife's head. I remember when she was calling, together we were calling HBCUs, and we couldn't get any of them even to respond to us, not even call us back. Now when she calls, president of HBCUs meet and greet us. We have a partnership with the White House team under the Obama administration. Every year they're wanting her to present from a dream, from a thought. So how important are our thoughts? You know, and so the challenge is the enemy is always trying to destroy you from thinking and from dreaming, but your thoughts are powerful. We just need to put some legs to it and some faith to it and then get it moving.
And particularly because I was one of those people that came into Ted's office over 29 years ago looking for an opportunity, and he gave me one. And he, you know, I literally just, you know, graduated college and said, oh, I'm going to come to LA and I'm going to get a job. And I couldn't. And I ended up, you know, coming to him, you know, by God, by faith. And he gave me a shot and he placed me at Paramount Pictures. And literally like the first 3 months, all I did was stamp purchase orders. That was it. That's all I did. But 3 months later, a woman walked by my desk. I had been greeting her, and saying good morning, good evening every day. And she walked by my desk. She said, Sasheen, I'm leaving the company. Do you want my job? Yes. Yes. I don't know what you do, but I will take your job. And so I ended up, she was the assistant to the vice president of creative services and home video. And that's where I ended up. And I was there for about 4 years. Left there, went back to TED, and he placed me again, still in Viacom, and I worked in television. And that was where my home was. That is where I realized this is where I want to be. And so today I'm a producer. A couple of days ago, I won my 3rd Emmy. And, my experience is, I'm a only child of a single parent, grew up on welfare. I'm from Harlem. I'm from New York. But I came here with a dream. I came here with the idea and the expectation that I was going to do something. And it takes tenacity, and it takes learning and listening. And so I founded a organization called Plenty of Pie, which is a production accelerator and a talent incubator that helps emerging creatives, folks that, know they want to be a writer, know that they want to be a director, but, they don't know the business of the industry. And my responsibility is to show them and to help them navigate that. And we go for 12 weeks. We do it via Zoom. It's virtual. So, people can do it from Atlanta, New Orleans, Kansas City, anywhere in the world. Learn about the business of the industry, because you see how things are made. You see how things are made. You like the lights, the glam, but it's really about the business and understanding the legal, the accounting, the risk management, and the process to get projects greenlit. People need to know how to do that, because the only time you will see different things on your television screen, on the theatrical world, is when we are there making those decisions. And we have to be positioned to make those decisions. And the only way we can do that is if we know and get into the industry now and learn how to navigate it. So that's what I do.
Okay, so I'm going to ask my first question that's a little bit tougher. So you've heard a lot of comments today and questions around access. And I think access is just one of the speed bumps that we run into when we try to invest in our communities, elevate people in our communities, and provide opportunities, right? Can you each talk a little bit about the speed bumps that you experienced today, how you think about them and how you address them?
Wow, it's a lot of speed bumps, right? It's a lot of speed bumps.
Pick your top 1 or 2.
It's like, slow down. No. And I think one was mentioned just about being a parent, right? Being a parent becomes a speed bump for many of our students, because in education K through 12, that's a speed bump because of you having to work or, looking for work, putting your child within school. You don't have access to investigate or advocate at that school site. And again, it comes back around to understanding what your role is. And I'm always telling folks, it takes a village, right? It takes a village to be able to do anything that we want to do with our children. And you have to be able to connect with other families to be able to make sure that you're, available to get the access and information that you need from those school sites. And so I think, and that's just part of life, right? You're being a parent, having your child, and often you're on an island and you feel like I got to do this by myself. But I think that's something that's a speed bump for us, is making sure that we connect families together within our school sites and letting them know that schools are a safe space. And that's not always the case, because you come with your own trauma and baggage that you may come about school. Because some folks is like, I don't like school. When I went to school, it was this, that, and the third. So I ain't going back up to that school. You go to that school. I'm not going to that school. So you come with issues of that sort where it becomes a speed bump for us to get the information to our families, that our students can access what we have to provide for them. So I think that's one of the major ones for us as educators, as those that are, making policy for our students to be successful. And so how do we untwine that? It's going to take a village, it's going to take minds like this to come together to be able to provide those resources to help our families connect.
Okay, all right, Stella.
Thank you, Jay. Yeah, speed bump is, do you remember on the slides that 40% of our population here in California is not familiar with the goals for California for sustainability, for climate change, et cetera, right? That's a big speed bump right there. On July 22nd, the world experienced the hottest day on record, right? But they say that every year. Every year. Last year, it was the hottest day ever. The year before, hottest day ever, right? So this is what we can expect. Hotter days, 100+ degree days, right? How many of you have ever heard of a resilience center? Yes, thank you. Thank you. So we need to get that out there, right? Resilience centers are places where folks that don't have air conditioning can go when we experience blackout, right? Folks that are on medication, they have to have that medication refrigerated. Where are they going to go when we have a blackout? So this is what a resilience center is all about. We need to build, excuse my language, shitload of resilience centers coming up, these next few years. So that's a big hurdle right there. And I was just looking at the priority sectors on Armand's slides: transportation, video production, aerospace, clean energy, healthcare, construction, bioscience, right? Those are all green jobs. Those are all green careers. So we need folks to get that education and to understand that these are good paying jobs. They're good paying, family sustaining careers. That's the first big hurdle that we've got to jump.
Okay, Ted.
I would say, for me, it's a number of different things. Obviously, race has always been an issue. With the industry right now, we're coming out of a 3-year pandemic, and right after that, there was a writer's strike for about 4.5 months, and then there's an actor strike right behind that. Disney laid off about 5,000 people in 21, and then another 7,000 in 23. Departments that were departments of 8 are now departments of 4. Departments that maybe had a marketing division for feature and one for TV, some studios are merging those departments. So the industry in and of itself is challenging. As we speak, I believe in 25, we'll start to see a change. I don't think it's going to jump back to pre-pandemic, but if the studios are going to survive, they're going to have to get back to making movies. But I think most important thing for me and for people in general is when times get crazy and just keeping your cool and believing God that you can have victory even in the midst of a storm. So, sometimes, I've had challenges in the areas of race because people will come in and they see me as a minority vendor. And I'm a minority vendor, but they see you as a minority vendor. And to them, a minority vendor means that if this area is the pie, I only get to play in this area because I'm a minority vendor. And so I stopped fighting that in the way I traditionally did. I stopped shouting. And so I learned different ways to maneuver around them. I mean, we had one account where I called all the people that I had placed there, and I placed many people that were full-time. And they always called me for the difficult assignments and for the top-level executives. So I would call the people that I placed full-time, and I would tell them, if you have a need in your department, if someone else in your department has a need, if the department down the hall has a need, make sure you request my agency. And so most of the business I did, like 80% of the business I did, was because it was repeat business from the people I previously placed. So, and people are faithful and people are loyal, but you just have to know that even in the midst of it being tough, it is still meant for you. And so we sometimes believe the lie that it's not meant for me. I mean, sometimes, you can tell by some of my language that I'm a Christian, and, I read a lot of scripture. And when I read in the Old Testament about King David and many of the other kings, King David would go to God and he says, should I go take that city? He says, go take it. I have it for you. But even then, he still had to fight. You know, he had to fight. So the things that you want, you're not just going to walk in and they're just going to give it to you. You probably may not have to chop someone's head off or cut off their arm, but you're going to have to stand. You're going to have to stand, and you're going to have to be aggressive and assertive in the vision that you have, because otherwise your vision will be taken and you'll see someone else wearing your vision.
I don't know if this, okay, so, so right now, our industry is in a contraction, a very deep depression, where you will find not only are businesses consolidating and merging and verticalizing, so you do have departments merging with each other. You have less opportunity to get in front of people that can greenlight your projects. You have less opportunity to raise money to make your own projects. And what you have to do is think outside of the box. I always talk to my fellows, my cohort, about America is just one audience, but we are a global industry, and there are 8 billion people on this planet, and at least 6 billion of them have internet. So you have to think about, is my content only specifically made for this market, or can it travel? Can it go to South Africa? Can it go to Brazil? Can it go to Italy? Can it go to China? Think about your global marketplace and think about how you reach your new audience, because America is just one audience, but there are billions of people out there.
All right, I know we are coming up on our meal time. How are we doing? 2 more minutes, 5 more minutes? 5 more minutes? Okay. So last question I'm going to ask you all, and we'll start with Sasheen and bring it back. Final word. So we're holding this here. We're in the what used to be called the Crenshaw Mall down here in the Crenshaw District, Lamert Park. This is where I used to get my hair cut when I first moved out here. Now I don't have hair, so it doesn't matter. But this community is very African American and Latino. And we were talking about Dorsey High earlier, which not only has a reputation for athletics, but also has a reputation for a certain demographic. And I think we all recognize that when we talk about these opportunities and the work that we want to do in different communities, that neighborhood, race, ethnicity, culture all matter in terms of how do we connect with people? How do we access opportunities and so on? So my last question for you all is if you could just talk a little bit about a unique dynamic that might be at play, something that you take into consideration or try to address when you're dealing with people from our communities.
Wow, that's a very broad question.
Because I'm trying to give you some space to answer it as you see fit.
I think the first thing people need to understand, particularly about the entertainment industry, a lot of people say it's who you know, and it's not. It's about who knows you, who knows what you can do, who knows what your skill set is. So when I think about, my people and, communities of color, communities of disability, communities of LGBTQ, communities that may be on the outside of the quote unquote mainstream, we have to think about networking and getting to know each other. We have to understand that in order to make, the next greatest movie, it takes 300 or 400, 500, 600, 700,000, it takes thousands of people to make that thing. This is not a one-man band. So you have to get to know folks. You have to, go outside of your communities. I work with a lot of folks in the public television space. And that space, public television is a very older, white, male, college-educated space. But you have to be comfortable in those spaces, and they have to get to know who you are and what you can do. Because when things come up, when opportunities come up, you want to be the first person. That's it.
as successful as she's been is with me is because she knows how to serve. And I knew that if I placed her, I knew if I placed her with a difficult executive, that she would manage that, she wouldn't run out, and she would deal with it. If it got too heavy, she would give me a call. So I felt comfortable placing her in a lot of different spaces. I just think where society is today, and just how people think, and how youth believes that their goals are going to be accomplished, are absent of kindness and courtesy and politeness. And so sometimes, not often, but sometimes I'll see people whose resumes don't even match with what I need. They don't have the skill set, but their cover letter is just covered with kindness. You know, I don't like it when people, and I would hide on LinkedIn. People would always tell me, you need to be on LinkedIn. I would hide from people because all they want something from me all the time. They want me to place them here. They want me to place them there. And it's always what they want, but they're never asking how they can help. And so volunteering your time and giving your time to people and give your time to community. You don't know who God's going to use to touch your life. But you don't need to have an attitude that it always needs to be, for me, it always needs to be about me. In our HBCU program, we have 32 different HBCUs represented. And we have 90 students. Last year we had 105 students. And so one of the girls came to me and she says, you know, I've been wanting to talk to you for 4 weeks now. And they call me Papa Ted. And I wanted to talk to you. And you know, there's always a long line. And I said, so I'm not worthy of you standing 10 minutes and waiting to talk to me? And so she looks at me and she's like, I said, you know, after you hear, because we'll bring big speakers in. We had like All-American, the cast of All-American last year. And then they'll have writers and producers and a lot of people like that will come and speak. And, you know, they're fed and they're learning a lot. And they sit down and I said, you sit down, you eat dinner, and then you get all this knowledge, and then you go to your room. I said, Stacy did this program, my wife, she did this program for you to have a vision, for you to have hope and an opportunity. You don't think she would love to hear how much the program is benefiting you? I said, are you enjoying the program? She said, it's changed my life. It's changed my view. I said, do you not think she wants to hear that? She looked at me, she says, I get it. I understand. You know, so show some kindness, show people appreciation, you know, and you can practice those things at home. You can practice those things when you go buy coffee. Buy someone behind you a cup of coffee. You don't have to know them. Be kind to your parents. Remind them how much you appreciate them. These are simple things that when you get in the workplace, you can flow with that. But if you're always mad with your mama all the time, and I place you, as soon as someone does what your mama does, you're going to be mad with them. And then they're going to cut you. Your mama's not going to cut you, but they're going to be done. And so I've seen people who are talented, people whose dreams should be fulfilled, who's much more talented than some of the people that are working because their attitude. So love on people. So that would be my final word.
All right. I have to agree with my partner panelists here. You made some really good points. And we heard some great ideas out here already about, you know, components to these grant proposals that could be really beneficial to the communities where we live and where we serve. So please bring that, you know, to the table, because you all know what it's like to live in your neighborhood. You all know what it's like to see, you know, people struggling, and there are a lot of folks struggling out there, right? We all know that. We all feel that. All the things that have happened over these past, how many years? 6-8 years, right? So we need to work together. I wanted to point out one thing and give kudos to some folks here, because we've been working on this for 2 years now. Miss Sharon Evans here, Luis Portillo, who is up here a little bit, Benny Torres, who's in the back, the LA EDC team, Armand and Yoma and Charles, and all the folks back at the office, and all of our committee members, our steering committee members, affinity group leads, table partner leads. These are the folks that are trying to connect all of this to you, to your organizations, to your communities. So please give them a round of applause, a little appreciation. Thank you.
Final words. Education, as we know, it's the foundation. And I think it's really critical and important. Mentioned here several times in education to be able to serve. And I think it's really important within our community to really highlight how important education is. And I say that because as an educator for many decades, I would often ask people of color and others who were much older than me, much more mature, and it was always the question of what's most important? What's most important in your life? And this would be a 90-year-old person, be 85, and it's like education. And I think because it's so important that we need to do all things to be able to get it and achieve it and work together in doing so. And it means to serve, it means to give back as parents at those school sites to serve not only your family, but the next kid's family. I was a coach for many years. I was that parent for many of our kids. I was driving folks, picking up folks. I was, and that's what about being in a community of Black and brown is to be able to serve one another, not to turn your back and say, I ain't helping you. I don't know, but to celebrate each other, because I think often that's not the case. And we need to celebrate each other a little bit more than we do within our communities and give back. I mean, that's why I'm back at Dorsey. I was at Dorsey for 25 years and been in this community, and why my kids go to school down the street at Baldwin. I'm gonna give a plug to Baldwin. And Baldwin, the demographics have changed in that community. It's not all brown and it's not all Black. The demographics have changed, and people within that community are seeing what it is to be a part of a community like that and the family unit that it brings. And so I want to say that as in education, to continue to strive for it, to continue to push our younger students to understand the value in it. And it's not everyone going to college. That's not what I'm saying. But to get the basics of reading with our children when they're younger, because that's something that's not happening in every household. Fortunately, we had the pandemic. We put a screen in their hand and we're like, you good, you quiet, you good, you all right? And that's not beneficial in anyone's community, let alone our community. And so I want to encourage those to really make the investment in education and in the lives of those around you in your community to help out. You know, a single mom is there. Do you need help picking up yours, dropping yours off? So that's important in education, and to make sure that our community continues to thrive. And there are going to be success stories in those communities from those schools. And we have to believe that because we're a part of that solution. So
Love
thank
it.
you.
Thank you to the panel. Appreciate you. I want to just emphasize something that I heard from all of you in different ways. So things, if you come from our communities, from an early age, you are encouraged to be independent, right? You can do it yourself. You can handle your own, right? And it's a way in which that you get measured as you get older. My invitation to you, especially given some of the scale of some of the opportunities that we've talked about tonight, is to start to think about how you can become interdependent, right? So I'm not taking anything away from your independence and your competence and your excellence and your magic. I'm just saying that there's some other people in the room that got their own magic. And if you can figure out how to properly assess who might make a great partner, who can collaborate with you because they're working in the same space, share the same passions, you might be able to do, 10 times the stuff with twice the help, right? So I'm going to leave it there with the panel. Thank you so much for sharing. We got one more thing to do, but you guys can step down. We have one guest that's waiting online that I wanted to bring in and talk to just for a couple of minutes before we go to meal. And I also want to encourage you to fill out your surveys, because I think that that's how you get your meal ticket. Is that how that works? Yeah, so make sure you fill out your survey, because I don't want you just looking at the food, right? So there we go. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Drew, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I think I saw a head nod. Drew, can you hear me? Wave. Okay, there we go. All right. Can you introduce yourself? Let's see if we can get that audio.
Yes, can you hear me okay? Hello? I'm not muted. Can you hear me?
So we got one more. We got one more guest. So don't be so quick to move.
Okay,
Drew,
can you hear me?
introduce yourself?
I'm speaking.
So sorry.
hear me?
You can hear us. We can't hear you.
Okay.
Is your microphone on?
Yes, it is. It's working within this system. Oh, let me try one thing.
I don't know. Maybe. So what we're going to try to do, Drew, is work on our audio.
Now.
We'll let people eat for now and then bring you back right at the end of the break. Is that all right?
Can you hear me
The
now?
screen is frozen too, so I don't know if that's all right, but that's what we're doing. Right? So we're going to work. So we're going to let the audience get a meal, and we'll work on this as we go, and we'll bring you in once we can.
Okay. Can anyone hear me
Okay,
now?
so for the audience, since we're having some technical difficulties with Drew, please go get some food.
Test. Also, if we could point your attention to the screen, it has 2 QR codes on it. This is how you scan the QR code to fill out the surveys. If you guys have not yet filled out the surveys, please scan the QR code. You'll find that QR code right up here on the screen. Thank you.
Hello? Hello?
AVC, keep testing. We don't hear you on the big speakers yet.
Hello? Can you hear me? Testing? Testing?
No, not on the big speaker.
Testing? Hello? 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 Hello?
Not yet.
Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
No.
Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Not yet.
How about now? Anything? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, not yet. Again, you would make your way up to the front to scan the QR codes.
Hello? Testing? Testing? Hello? Hello? Testing?
Still nothing.
Testing? Hello? Testing? Hello? Hello?
I'll try again now. Try again now. Try again.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, but not through the right output, so bear with me.
Okay, let's closer.
Try again.
Hello, can you hear me? Testing? Testing? Testing?
Thank you very much, Antelope Valley College. We're still working on it. Go ahead and try now.
Testing? Testing, can you hear me? Testing? I'm speaking, can you hear me? Testing, can you hear me? Testing, can you hear me? Trying all microphones, can you hear me? Hello?
Okay, I think we can hear you now, Antelope Valley. Can you try?
Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Testing?
Can you try again, ABC?
Testing? Hello? 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 Can you hear me? Testing? Hello? Hello?
Through. Testing. Go ahead and try again, ABC.
Hello? Testing? Can you hear me? Testing? Hello?
Keep going, keep going.
Hello, testing, testing, testing. Hello, hello, hello. 1, 2, 3. Hello,
Keep trying.
hello, testing. Hello, speaking. Hello, testing. Hello. Well, thank you for coming.
Go ahead again, sir.
Let's find out what they're missing. So. Hello, testing.
Try again.
Try again. Hello. Hello.
Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
No, I think that's his.
Hello, testing.
Try again. Try again.
Hello, testing. Hello, testing. Testing. Hello.
That should work. Yeah, but look, this bear with us. We're getting close. AVC. Try again. AVC.
Testing. Hello. Hello, testing. Testing.
Would you perhaps have like a music or audio track that you could play consistently?
Mother. Wanted to say on your I was breathing. You see, you see, sail to sleep.
Try now. Try now.
Testing, hello, can you hear me?
Try now.
Hello, hello, can you hear me?
Try now.
Hello,
No.
okay.
All right, try again.
Testing, hello,
Keep trying.
hello, hello, testing, testing. I'm trying to switch over to my phone to see if that works. No, it won't.
Not.
Let me try. I'm trying to download the app on my phone to see if we can get that to work.
That could very well work.
Okay.
Is it up? He hears me, but we can't hear him from this. I mean, how? This is an iPhone. You don't have the proper adapter. Huh? Not like this is an iPhone. iPhones don't have the same. No. You have to have an adapter.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Where's my?
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, is this working?
No, we don't need that. Test, test, test,
Can you hear me? Hello?
test, test,
Testing.
test,
Hello? Can you hear me?
test, test, test. Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, good. Okay.
Can you hear us?
Yes. So my only difficulty here is my phone has about 6% charge right now. So I'm gonna get to where I can plug it in.
And you could still hear us, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Now that we have the sound up, maybe you might want to just plug it in for a little while, and then we'll call on you soon.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hey, Drew, let's test your audio one more time.
Testing. Hello, can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Ready.
Again, those of you who have not filled out the form, please scan the QR code on the screen. Scan the QR code on the screen and fill out our survey. Thank you.
Testing 1, 2. Up. Is more? Up. Hello, everybody. Hello. For those who have eaten, if we can get you guys, hello, just for a second. We have one more part of the program. I want to see if we can get these first 2 rows filled up. So if we can get everybody who's standing and eating, bring your meal with you. We want to get these first 2 rows of seats filled up and then fill in from there. This is a panel, a very important panel, and this will be able to take us home. So we can get everybody to start moving up with their meals right now. It'll help us get to the root of the matter. The conversations will still be good afterwards, but we need to get this program on the road. I'm gonna start calling people out. JP, Sterlina, JP, start walking. Start bringing. Ted, bring your Coke. Everybody sitting at the tables over there to the left, please fill in over here. Miss Linda Franklin, come on up. Sterlina, come on up. Chad, why don't you come on up? Let's fill in these first couple of rows. No, I want you here. Okay, we got one more person on the panel, but if we can get everybody, come on up, everybody, come up. This last panel is probably one of the most important ones to me because we get real. And we talk about some of the things that are hard to talk about among strangers. But I hope that all of us become friends after this thing is over. But we're going to be talking about barriers to entry and getting recommendations from people, from Black and brown folks. We need to figure out how we can get better at getting where we need to be. So I'm going to try to see if I can get anybody else brave enough to sit in the front row. A few more people in the back. Yeah, waiting for my, I saw her go to the car, but I may have to start without her. Okay, so we'll turn it over to Jay. I'm going to give him a few minutes just to warm us up.
I can't take a wired mic. Thank you. How we doing? Okay, beautiful. Drew, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
And I can hear you. That's excellent.
Wonderful.
Okay. So we are going to start a panel conversation in about 3 minutes. Before, since we have some time and now we've got our audience back, I would love for you to just introduce yourself because we're going to bring you into this conversation.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. My name's Drew Mercy. I'm the Executive Director for Antelope Valley Edge, which is the Economic Development and Growth Enterprise. We're a regional economic development group based in North LA County, Lancaster, Palmdale. And I represent SPA 1 on the California Jobs First steering. And I want to thank everyone for being there and including us in this conversation. We're a bit of the distant part of the county up in Lancaster and Palmdale. And so as part of that, some of you may not be as familiar with us. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about our community and some of the challenges that we have. We are a community of approximately 400,000 people that are in LA County in the high desert. And we have, on the slides that were shown earlier, a 76% disinvested community representation up here. But one of the unique things about us in the county, we also have the highest number of what we call super commuters, those that who are working that are driving more than 90 minutes each way to get to work. And that's where many of the environmental goals that we've been talking about here. We always say any job created locally in the Antelope Valley is a green job because it gets somebody off of the 14 freeway driving, that 3 to 4 hours a day. We have some other challenges as well, barriers within LA County, being that we're somewhat remote. We are consistently underfunded by the county. We get back about 25 cents on the dollar of our tax dollars that go to LA County. And that particularly hurts us when trying to serve our homeless population. SPA 1 gets the least amount of dollars per homeless resident of any of the spas. We get $277. Other spas get between $2,000 and $4,000, and it's a particular challenge up here when we're talking as we are about the climate. We're in the high desert. We've always had a large number of 100+ days in the summer, and so it becomes very hard to protect that population in the one area where the weather can kill people when we're underfunded. So that's some of our challenges. Again, I mentioned the high percentage of super commuters. Again, out of 400,000 people up here, about 80,000 commute to LA. And so I say that, opening up local jobs here is not only environmentally friendly, but then it creates broader opportunities through the rest of the county as well. Historically, we're have had a lot of aerospace since the Second World War. We still have a very large presence, particularly by Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman, as well as many other startup and small space companies. The last 20 years or so, though, we've made a name for ourselves in the clean energy sector. One of the nice things in the beautiful desert, we have more sun than just about anywhere else in the country. And that's led to quite a few industrial solar fields, as well as testing new and other types of solar power, of solar generating technologies. Our city of Lancaster recently large portion on the east side of our town, specifically for hydrogen development. So we've really embraced that green economy. And the other side of things, though, I say workforce development continues to be a challenge. We need to get more training programs for people for those aerospace and clean energy jobs, as well as manufacturing and logistics. The other side of the things that make us kind of unique in LA County is that we have a lot of wide open space and room to grow, and the ability for large industrial logistics and manufacturing facilities that we want to promote. I think that kind of covers us in that 2-3 minute nutshell. I want to thank you for your time and for learning a little bit more about us.
Thank you, Drew. That was quick and informative. Can you tell me a little bit more about some of the initiatives that you're involved with?
Yeah, so we actually have a kind of cross-county initiative with Kern County on aerospace workforce development. We're coordinating it with 3 different community college districts, several high school districts, and dozens of employers. We have a lot of groups up here that have been aerospace focused for a long time, but a lot of duplication of effort. And getting workforce development to feed that pipeline for the needs of the aerospace community is not only good for our residents, but good for the industry as well. As part of that, I think the biggest challenge is finding classroom space. We have some great programs at Antelope Valley College. We also have several incredible nonprofits that do mechanical and engineering, essentially pre-apprenticeships for folks. And the other ones we're doing are supporting the trades, working with the laborers and LAOC Building Trades Council to develop local access for trade union apprenticeships. Those have been very promising out here, again, with a lot of the solar we're doing to fill those positions, working closely with the IBEW and other.
Wow, that is a lot. All right. I'm going to, first of all, thank you for everything that you do. And I recognize that you've just laid out about a dozen different challenges that are all kind of layered on top of each other. That's a lot. And I think it is an illustration of where social impact organizations can fit in by trying to peel off one challenge, not necessarily all of the challenges at the same time, right? I think that sometimes we look at a situation like the one you described. We have 80,000 people that are commuting at least, 20 hours a week, and trying to figure out how we provide education space, and trying to figure out how we make sure there's economic opportunity, and trying to connect people back to aerospace, and think that like we have to have one solution, when really everything that you've listed implies that we need to find kind of a hat full of solutions, right? And different people peeling off each part. So
Yeah.
I appreciate the work that you're doing, and hopefully we can figure out some ways to support you. In the meantime, I also want to bring in our in-person panelists and ask them, wasn't me, I paid for my stuff. Our in-person panel, and have them introduce themselves as well. So I'm going to start with Linda. Do you have oh, those don't work? Okay.
Linda Kelly, Fathers and Mothers Who Care. I'm part of the initiative, and I represent homeless, veterans, and seniors.
I'm Chad Hunter, Brotherhood Crusade, coordinator for employment services, represent SPA 6, South Los Angeles area for ages 5 to 24 years old with workforce development.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sterlina Cerritos. Hello, everyone. My name is Sterlina Cerritos, and I am the Director of Business Development for West Cal Academy. We run California's largest pre-apprenticeship program all throughout the state, north to south.
Okay. There's no mic? Okay. So what I want to make sure we do, so this, we've talked about region, and you've heard Drew talk about some of the unique elements in his region. We've talked about some of the challenges in this region. We've talked about some of the historical and systemic issues that we're working with. We've also talked about downtown, some of the issues around language differences and so on. We've covered that piece. What we've also started to talk a little bit more about is race and culture and its impact on opportunity. And this is where I think Kevin was talking about how we want to get real with this final conversation. I want to hear more about some of the unique challenges that you face, some of the unique ways in which we deal with our kind of disinvested populations, right? And what makes some of those challenges unique, and what makes those communities unique, and some of the things that we need to do. So I'm going to start with this very broad question, which is, when you think about the work that you're doing right now, how does race come into play?
That's a good one. That's the loaded one. Race comes into place because I work in homelessness primarily. And in that sector, we are the top. I'm trying to be politically correct because
right, this is real talk.
It's real talk, but it ain't real talk. It's
No.
between.
just tell it like it is.
So okay. So unapologetically, I'm gonna tell you that we don't get the resources that we need to service Black and brown individuals. Okay. The money doesn't come to us to do it. The vouchers don't come to us to do it. The work source does not come to us to do it. And when I say I represent homelessness, that means I represent reentry. TAY, which is the youth, seniors, veterans, families, individuals, LGBTQ. So see, I haven't missed any population demographic.
No,
And I
because
represent them in all,
homelessness hits
and
everybody, right?
we do not get the resources for our people. Now, I can send them to other spas and they can get grade A service. But in spa 6, I have to turn them away. Like right now, we have no funding to house seniors. We won't get our contract executed until October, November, even though our fiscal year closed June 30th. Okay? So all the people that are experiencing homelessness right now, or their utilities need to be paid right now, I have to tell them, oh, I'm sorry, my funding won't be here until October, November. So you're shut off today. You're in the dark until I can come back and get you in October and November. And I can't even refer you to a different spa to handle you because now it's been mandated that wherever you started, that is where your resources are. Okay? It has been changed that if it's not LASA funded, I can't send you to a different bed. It has to be LASA funded in order for you to get paid. So that's why a lot of our people choose not to go inside of a shelter because they're full. I can't send them to an independent shelter because it's not LASA funded and they don't have the money to pay for it. DPSS or public service, whatever, they're only going to give them $571. No one's accepting them. Veterans Administration tells them, well, if you don't want to come to the west side to come into our facility up here, we're not going to service you. Even when they put the new one down here in Torrance. Okay, our vets are already traumatized. They served our country. And then we're steady telling them that you can't get service. So they feel safe and comfortable where they're landed and where they're at. So you have to make connections to bring the VA to them. But it's hard. I relocated to Compton. I don't mean to take up all you guys' time, but I relocated to Compton. Compton senior housing is expiring. Where are my seniors gonna go then when it expires and they have no more? All senior housing is a lottery again. And if they're sitting in Compton, that means they want to be in Compton. I can't tell them to go over here to Buckingham Road where there's a new facility coming up, but it's a lottery. Our homeless want to be serviced in the areas where they're at. Pushing them out somewhere else is not where it's at. Homelessness has a different face. It's not always the crazy person that they want to see. I have families, I have full families that come take showers, send their kids to school. They go to work. It's not all about the person hollering and screaming. But then that's another issue because we've talked about home safe and we're putting them in permanent housing. They don't know how to live in permanent housing. They've been on the streets for so long. So then now I'm jeopardizing the people that do know how to live inside because now I do have a crazy person with a little bit of mental illness running up and down the hallway. So now my families are scared to come outside. So we're not really touching the problem intentionally. We're steady putting Band-Aids on it.
Ashe. So Brotherhood Crusade, we have this philosophy: if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. And we approach this especially since we founded in 1968 in response to the Watts Uprising, in a sense that there was so much government control in our community that once you cut it off, it became like survival of the fittest. So as we move forward to 2024, it's almost like, okay, we got we have a lot of digital problems, but we still have a lot of analog solutions. A lot of them are still caught up within our governmental structure of waiting for funding, how are we responding to needs like now compared to 3-6 months. And so those are conversations and dialogues that I know I'm happy that are at least being had. with Brotherhood Crusade, when it comes to race, it was the idea of going back to an old school philosophy that I believe my grandmother taught, and you don't get too much in LAUSD often, which is teaching our young Black men and young Black women what it means to be 2 to 3 times better. Is it fair? No. But do we understand that as the consequence of where we are in the history? I appreciated what you said earlier that I overheard, where as soon as somebody sees somebody Black do it, the idea is, oh, now it can be done. Everybody can do it, right? So I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine. I was like, Donald Trump's running because he saw Barack Obama win. So before Barack, it was like, oh, I couldn't qualify to be president. He saw a Black person and was like, I can do that. And then had the gall to go out and do it. So I'm not saying that as an endorsement anyway, at all. But I just want to give the example of how race can impact workforce development and how we show up in the community for our future youth to see what can I be and what opportunities that I have available. So in race, we have, especially in Brotherhood Crusade, I was just having this conversation, but we have young women and young men who come to Brotherhood Crusade. Well, I want to be a police officer. I want to be a firefighter, or I want to be a social worker. I want to be a teacher. I want to be a fireman, or I want to be a trash man. They're saying everything that they see in their community. So we had a young man who came in 2.5 years ago, and when he came in, he wanted to be a social worker. So one of the things as far as the Brotherhood Crusade motto, as far as when it comes to race identity, we started self-actualization. So our programming starts with, who are you first before I just throw you over here? That way we're not just another work source center where it's like, oh, you need a job, here goes Taco Bell, right? Nothing against Taco Bell, but we want them to be executives and, move up, thrive in and secure employment. Or if they go into construction, how do I get into construction? And how can I go into the space and navigate this space and not feel like I'm having imposter syndrome, right? Like I'm supposed to be here. So, we have a young man, he came in, wanted to be a social worker. We prepared him to do as a social worker, but he never stopped going through our programming. We took him to the Compton airport. He touched the airplane and said, I want to be a pilot. As of 2 months ago, he's a licensed pilot. And we supported him through that path, right? So this young man, this is one of the young men I literally can call right now. He can call me and fly me out, and I can fly with him over to Catalina. We can have a good time, fly back. Interesting thing, on the other end, we have employer partnerships where we have partnerships with Black-owned airline companies that actually have hangars at LAX that fly cargo. So we're about to say, hey, young man, owner. So it's almost like creating this operation where we have to be creative, where we understand that we're coming across this digital problem solving, but we have to figure out how can we use an analog foundation of hustle and grind and continue to advance ourselves while applying to this digital aid and how fast things are coming at us, so that we're never going to eliminate the idea of the conversation of race, but so that we can start addressing it to our young people for a better future.
Can you go over the question once again? Sorry.
So thinking about what you do with your organization, how does race impact the work?
So we work within the LA County probation halls and camps. And it is well known that there's a disproportionate amount of Black and brown young people that are being incarcerated. Even for just the dumbest things. So one way that we're impacting the Black community, the brown community, is we take our West Cal pre-apprenticeship program into the halls and camps because they're in there, they can't come out. We've tried different methods of having them go to field trips outside, which I think would be very extremely impactful to bring them outside of those walls. But because we can't do that due to the restrictions of LA County probation, we bring the industries to them. And I think what I like about apprenticeships is that I don't think that there can be room for discrimination in apprenticeships, because not only do we work with the big companies to provide mentorship and hands-on job exploration, but we also make sure to reach out to and encourage Black and brown owned businesses and employers to come and represent what they do to these young students. So I think something that is definitely needed for these students is they need a support network. A lot of these students, when they exit these juvenile halls and camps, they're lonely. They go back to the broken home that they come from. They go back to the communities that kind of was the reason why they ended up in those places in the first place. So we offer mentorship, we offer the support network, and we make sure that the people that we hire to be industry representatives relate to those students inside. Because it's really hard for us to say, let's say we invite someone that is a white CEO, and he grew up in a privileged area, and he goes into the halls and camps, and it's just, people of color, students of color. They go, how can I relate to you? I don't understand where, you got your job because you're white. Because a lot of these kids, they say that out loud. You got your job because you're white, and they're not afraid to say it like it is. So it's important for West Cal for us to bring in, for instance, we had Jamco, Michelle Edmond. She is a Black-owned business, Maritime Foundation. They just came from Oakland down to LA yesterday. And we're talking, and she was actually on the panel yesterday talking about the opportunities that she focuses on to the Black and Brown community. We're actually inviting her to a career fair that we're having at Barry J. Nydorf. And she wants to actually help onboard these young men. A lot of these boys in our classes, they're young Black men. And we know that they are the ones that need these opportunities the most, especially because a lot of them have, tattoos. None of them, there isn't a lot of employers that are going to want to hire them because of the way they look. But we understand that they still need a chance. And that is why we work with brown and Black employers to give them a chance. They'll look at them and they say, we saw you at Barry J. We got to know each other. Let's talk some more. So when you come out, we're going to be waiting for you right here to give you an opportunity to thrive. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Right. So one thing that you heard here is access, right? That, when you show up coming from a certain background, sometimes that closes certain doors, and you got 3 people on stage, and a lot of you are actually doing this work too, where you're just kind of like, leaning on the door just to open it up a little crack so that some other people can sneak in, right? But that is a real challenge, especially, Sterlina, what you just said about how people look. Even when we're part of these communities, sometimes we take certain signals from appearance without getting to know folks and what they bring to the table and what kind of character they have and stuff like that. And when we step outside of the community, obviously those people are dealing with a much larger population that may be making many more assumptions about them as soon as they walk in the door before they've even opened their mouth. So thank you all for doing that work. Question 2, go ahead.
Just wanted to add, there's a young man in our program, and he is Afro Latino, and he has tattoos on his faces. And we understand that just because you have tattoos on your face doesn't mean you are a bad person. It doesn't mean the doors should be closed. And I told him at the IBEW, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, you see a lot of people that are Black and brown. They have tattoos on their faces, and they're making so much money, $80,000, $100,000 as electricians. So we're making an effort to bring those type of people inside and say, look at him. You too can make just as much as money as he can. And it doesn't matter the way you look. So just wanted to throw that out there because it made me cry.
That's key. And so my next question for you all is going to be around access. But just to put the point on this question about appearance, isn't it ironic that when it comes to culture, when I say culture, entertainment, right? Film, TV, music, dance, sports, etc., that the people that have that look are the ones who set the culture, are the ones who everybody's trying to imitate and emulate and follow, right? But then we step into the professional world, and then those people who, by the way, if they need to take a meeting in the professional world, right? That hip hop artist or that athlete, everybody else is trying to make them feel comfortable in the professional setting. But if you come off the street reflecting that same culture, a lot of times you can't get the time of day. And so we have to teach folks to be able to live in multiple cultures, right? And we have to also be mindful about kind of creating the access. But I also want to talk about awareness. So, you know, we've heard people talk about services they offer. We've heard today about resources that are going to be available and some things that are coming online. You've heard about other organizations that are trying to help organizations. And for many of you, this is the first time you're hearing about those things. And I've got 3 people on stage who have services for people who have, you know, acute needs and nevertheless may have no idea that you're doing what you're doing. So can you each talk a little bit about what you do to raise awareness and actually make the connection so folks know that you were there and they can take advantage of what you have to offer?
I say the first thing with Brotherhood Crusade, follow us on Instagram, BH Crusade, at BH Crusade. You get a lot of resource and understanding there. A lot of how we've been built is word of mouth and by brand recognition from being in a lot of different spaces, from Taste of Soul to the gala to the golf tournament. But as far as the work goes, access, it's also building strategic partnerships with employers who not just can give internships, but can offer long-term employment once that's done. So for instance, we have a partnership with LA Tech. When we started this was about a year ago and they came in and I really appreciated what the founder, creator, CEO of, not creator, I think he's the founder of LA Tech said, which is a white man. And he said, as he was coming through tech, he started realizing how he would show up to rooms and he would see nothing but white men. And so he said, how do I get into, and this goes back to what I was saying about being strategic in digital solutions. He said, you know, how do I find more Black and brown and disenfranchised community come into tech? And so he found out about how the city can fund these workforce development plans, sought out organizations that are, you know, fiscally responsible and know how to lay these things out and have those resources in connection and can get them access of trust into certain community. Because if you know Black folks, if we don't trust you, we're not talking to you. So right now, one of the things he said that really struck a nerve with Brotherhood Crusade was, he was like, how do you get into the tech field if you don't have any tech experience? Because the first thing they do when they ask you at an interview is what? Do you have any tech experience? Well, I got to school and I got a bachelor's degree and I got a master's degree, but who have you worked for? And so he said, I wanted to create this opportunity where we partner with venture capitalist company where we can actually get interns who come in through a workforce development plan. They go through our training, and then at the end, the possibility of working with one of the Fortune 500 tech companies. Well, I say all that to say, now we're going on our 4th cohort with them, and we've probably graduated close to 60 kids in the last year through Brotherhood Crusade that has went through LA Tech that are now looking at having long-term jobs in the tech field. And when we first sat down, the first thing he said was a room of 100 students, and we were at Solar Impact, the Beehive. It was room for 100 students and Black and brown throughout the entire. He said, raise your hand if you're related to somebody in tech, or if you know, if you've ever worked in tech. Probably 5 people rose their hand. He was like, so how do you even understand tech if you don't even know how to navigate it? So when it comes to the construction field or comes to the and all these different relationships, access, especially when it comes to the ability of a community that represents a racial group, is very important for us to realize how important presence and fighting for these type of opportunities and type of relationships to strategically take them back to our kids so that they can have a vision where we're not just sitting talking and saying this is what we can do, but they can see and say, you did this for Chad, you did this for Leo, you did this, why can't you do this for me? So the Brotherhood Crusade stance is always, on one end, what does career development look like? And then on the other end, what does a career pathway to a livable wage entry level position look like so you can stay in your community?
So tell me more about how we got the 100 people in the room in the first place. How did those people find out about that opportunity?
He partnered with, they literally went out and partnered with organizations like Brotherhood Crusade or other AJCC sites, whether it be in East LA or LA Trade Tech, El Prieto, and all these different work source centers who were on the front line. He called out council members. He sought out non-government organizations and agency, and he said, look, I'm not here to be political, but I got this thing called tech, and this is what we train. We're treating cybersecurity and augmented reality and coding and all these things are in the future. We're teaching all these things, and if you know somebody who wants to be a part of it, they don't have to pay for the course.
So basically, he went to those organizations, and those organizations that had relationships did what? What did they do to make their people aware?
We already had so for an organization like State, we had a lot of the relationships where we already had a model of recruiting and not necessarily, looking at things like what can't we do, is what can we do? And so they saw an organization like Brotherhood Crusade, who already has a relationship with the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Lakers, the Clippers.
Right, but again, I'm talking about the participants. I want to know, how do they find out? How do they get involved?
Right now, Brotherhood Crusade, it's been either hirelaYouth.com, it's been word of mouth, or it's literally been through our Instagram page.
Okay.
So right now we sit with a waiting list of kids that we are funding in. So we're actually asking the city for more slots as we speak.
Love it. Okay, Linda.
Okay. To the young lady that said that our communities don't get what we need, especially in green tech, I agree 100%. Okay. But it takes us, small organizations, getting together. And that's what this forum is about. And I know we've missed the mark in getting the word out and what we're trying to do. So I'm going to stand on that. And I know we missed the mark, because we have hundreds and thousands of our community here saying what they want. And that's what this was supposed to be about. Okay. The communications, the networking of together before September to write, say, our neighborhoods need good fruit in our stores without buying at Whole Foods where it's going to be higher and the EBT card is going to run out. But we're not there yet, and we need to be there, but we're not there. And that is our problem. Like you said, getting the word out. We missed the mark. The state of California gave us a deadline that we had to have this done. We rushed. They gave us the money late. They gave Kevin the money late, and expected him to do a job without all the proper tools. And that is what mostly time happens in our community. What is going on in other neighborhoods, they knew about this long, long time ago. I'm talking about a year or two. They gave it to us at the beginning of last year and said, hey, you need to do this. And then it took us so long to frame it where we were able to include our community to have a say. And that was a battle. And then after we got that passed, then they says, okay, well, you took too much time on that. I need you to just go out here and throw these 5 to 6 events together and tell the community that this money is here. So even though it was social media, even though it was word of mouth, even though it was a bunch of organizations that we corralled together and we were supposed to tell each other, hey, these things are happening, we missed the mark. And we're missing the mark with our future generation. We're missing the mark all over the place in our community because we're not getting the right information out. Because guess what? Geographical, economic, whatever, that don't resonate with nobody in this room. But we couldn't change the name. We couldn't say what the real name was as a community forum to come together to intentionally market to our community. We had to go with what they said. So we're gonna always miss the mark. We're always gonna be coming underneath the radar because they're not giving us the proper tools to address our community.
So this is where I have, an invitation to all of you, and this is something that, no one individual, one organization can do, but collectively we might be able to start working on, which is contact management. If you're sitting here at fill in the blank apparel maker, and you want to make sure that you have a steady stream of people paying attention to the next drop of your new t-shirts or, that fly belt or those alligator shoes or whatever it is that you're selling, you will make sure that you have your Instagram page and your TikTok account or whatever, right? Your account on X, if that's what you do. But in addition to that, You're trying to take people off of these mass media channels so that you figure out how you can reach them directly. Now, when I was a kid and we didn't have these newfangled things like phones that don't have a little thing that you have to turn and, and the internet and websites and stuff like that. Back in the olden days, we would have phone trees. Y'all remember that? Like the youngsters are like, a phone tree? How you make a tree from a phone? So we would just have a list of names and phone numbers. But your job, right, when you got a phone call, your job was to call 2 or 3 other people on the list that were identified as your people. That's how it becomes a tree. You could think of it as a web even. And so we have this old school learning within our communities about how to spread the word, how to make people aware of stuff. But we lack 2 things. One is modern infrastructure and process. How do we manage those contacts today? How do we get the word out today in the way, where people are actually being contacted, right? Because it's not, you no longer have a phone attached to a wire in your house, right? So how do I reach them now? And the second is trust, right? I'm going to ask Sterlina in a second to talk about trust, but the second is trust. There was a time when part of being part of a community meant that if other people in the community reached out to you, your first assumption was it was in your own best interest. Somebody pulled you aside and said, hey, I saw your kid throwing rocks at the such and such. Maybe you want to tell her she might break a window, right? You wouldn't start jumping down their throat. You're like, hey, where do you live? Do you have kids? Thanks for letting me know, right? It was a different thing. There was trust. You pulled up on somebody you didn't know and said, hey, I heard they're selling stuff half price. Folks like, word, and they would be there. Right? Nowadays, it's a lot harder to just get past the kind of, hey, let me tell you what's going on. And we have to figure out ways to establish trust so that that information, when it's communicated, isn't being intercepted.
So we have a community that has been traumatized by various means. Some of us are traumatized just being born in certain communities, and understanding that we have to address the mental health needs of not only the participants and the people that we want to service, but even the providers. And the constituents that make these decisions, and make sure that we're doing so from an informed and from a grounded position. Because oftentimes we have decisions made and situations that we're put into because of someone else's imbalance or ignorance. And it kind of gives a crumbling effect, and these services can't be of any use to us, or it creates the opposite of what the initial intention actually is. And I know we need to close soon because we're running over, but I just wanted to make sure that that is a focus point that all of these providers are using in their curriculum, and that we have that in mind when we think about what is necessary in moving forward.
Can I? Oh,
Thank you for that. Can I ask? I want to just stay in on this trust thing, because I want to get to Sterlina and then come down the line too. How do you establish that trust with the people who work with you?
How do I establish trust? I'm sorry? Go all the way. No, don't hold back. So a large percentage of the students that we work with have trust issues. I mean, we're talking kids that are in the probation halls and camps. Like you said, being born is a trauma in and of itself. But these kids are born into very complicated situations, and there are different ways to approach. And one of the tools that I deploy when I'm trying to establish trust is I become vulnerable. I have to be vulnerable. And for instance, I'm thinking about these times when we were at the Dorothy Kirby Center. It's a co-ed mental health facility that kind of is like a minimum I'm not minimum incarceration facility. And there are some young ladies in there that were very standoffish when I first came into the cottage, and I thought, how can I have them trust us? Because I want to help them. We're trying to give them opportunities outside in the workforce. A lot of them say, I can't do that, I can't do this. I'm just going to go back and sell drugs because that's all I know how to do. So we're trying to open up a world to them. And I see myself as the person that opens the door. And I say this all the time. I don't know if how many of you have read Catcher in the Rye, the book? And in the story, there's a character where he's standing in the rye field, if I'm remembering correctly. He's standing in the rye field and he wants to catch the kids before they fall off the cliff. And he's the catcher in the rye. And when I read that book, I was 15. I was in the middle of my hormonal rage, teenage hormone-fueled rage. And I want to be that catcher in the rye. I want to be for them what I needed when I was 14, 15, 16, 17. I spent time in a mental health institution when I was 14 years old because of the community that I was in and some of the traumas I experienced. So when I become vulnerable, I share my story. I tell my story to these young men and women, or boys and girls, of all colors. And it doesn't matter what color you are, a lot of us experience the same traumas. And I understand that there is the lens of race. But I again, over and over and over again, I hear similar stories from Black, white, brown, Asian. And so to establish that trust, I tell them, I was in your place once. This is how I did it. Sometimes there are situations where the only way out of those situations is through it. And I'm just getting chills right now. That's how I establish trust. I tell my story. I build that connection. Relatability is important, which is exactly why when we bring in people from different industries into West Cal to represent those industries at the probation halls and camps, we make sure that they are a reflection of the young people that we have inside. Men with tattoos, Latina women that are business owners, people that maybe, at one point they were troublemakers, they were in gangs, they were formerly incarcerated. We bring them into the halls and camps and say, we want you to let these young people know that, it's not all is lost. Not all is lost. And I have struggled and wrestled with mental unwellness in the past. There are times when I remember one time someone said, what are you going to do when you turn 18? And I used to look them dead in the eye and I used to say, I don't think I'm going to make it past 18. I remember that. So I want to be for those kids what I needed when I was 15. That's how I establish trust. I tell my story and I become vulnerable.
Yeah, just two quick things. You talked about phone trees. Everybody here on the internet, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or some form of internet. Okay, so there's this amazing thing called algorithms. When you follow certain organizations, all of that information can filter into your feed. One of the things as the coordinator of employer services at Brotherhood Crusade, I'm very fast at following organizations that are in workforce development or that are into funding or that are into business. If I see a company gave somebody a check, I'm following that organization because every organization that's tied to them is now coming into my feed. And so instead of watching, all this other stuff, I'm strictly strategically moving down and finding out these resources that are right here in our community. Then also when it came to trust, I love that. You touched on some great things. One of the things at Brotherhood Crusade, I became the person I needed at Brotherhood Crusade when I was younger. So I had to learn from the lessons of the guidance that I did not get. And a lot of times when the young people come in, they're like, so why should I be here? And I'm like, I don't know, you tell me. I just met you. I don't know what you need. I don't know what you're going through. But for some reason, how did you find out about us? What do you know about us? Because clearly you walked through our door. So I don't even know if I can trust you with the resources that we're going to put you in. So let alone how it's a mutual thing, right? Whether it be mental health, whether it be homelessness, you've been let down somewhere along this way. So if you're here sitting in front of me, how can I be that person I needed for you right now that I needed when I was growing up so that we can establish this relationship? Because once I take these steps towards you to provide this for you and these opportunities, I need you to trust yourself to be here.
Okay, the last word. So trust is, ooh, my young people, I have to listen to them. And then I have to listen to them. And then I have to listen to them. And then I have to listen to them. And when they start trusting me that I'm not going anywhere, then they open up and they'll start telling you what they need and which direction they want to go. And that is the same thing for the veterans. I just housed a veteran. I've had him on my caseload since 2014. I've housed him 2 or 3 times, but this time he was ready to stay inside. So I get a lot of blessings that way. Trust comes in 2 forms though. Like he was saying, sometimes I'm like, I got these resources, but am I going to trust you to do what you need to do with it? Because my funders are putting me in handcuffs. So I have to do certain things with these funds. And I just can't arbitrarily give them out. And I know that I said this last night, but I want to tell you guys something. We work with a vulnerable population. And if they walk through my door, they've put their pride aside and they've said, I need help. For me to have to exploit them and take pictures and hug them and come through the line and do all that kind of stuff, I'm double traumatizing them when I'm supposed to be in a space that said, first, do no harm. That's what I'm supposed to be in a space that says, first, do no harm. But I am double harming you when I have to keep on taking pictures of you or have you to give me your phone number and your name and your address and come. You may not want that. You may just need to take a shower. But I'm sending you through so much just to take a shower. So I'm asking that who's ever out here, when you guys do these services, let's change the way we do them. Let's tell the funders that, no, we're not going to exploit them. We're doing what we said we want to do for these people. That's why we're in this business. We're not in this business exactly for the money, because if it was.
All right. So we got to leave it there. I want to thank our hosts because we've been here over time. It's been an amazing conversation, an amazing evening. Thank you all for staying as well. Thanks to the panel. Appreciate you. And good night.
Right.